Okay, we shall begin. It's 1:30. Thank you all for being here on time. And Marshall, thank you for this setup. I think it's excellent. It will protect us all. And we'll begin with everybody, please check your cell phones. Make sure you're either off or on quiet. And we'll begin with calling the roll, please. Manelda.
Commissioner Shoemaker. Here. Commissioner David. Commissioner Gothic-Seidman.
Present.
Vice Mayor Bobby.
Present.
Mayor Hillman.
Present.
Town Attorney Tercibia.
He's going to be joining us on the screen via Zoom shortly.
Thank you.
Yes. Maybe in a second.
Not here yet. Okay, not here
Okay.
yet.
All right.
Town Manager Labadie.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, will we all rise, please, for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does anyone have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I do, if possible.
Okay,
Just a discussion of the agenda submission due dates.
I'm sorry, again, please.
A
Maybe if you
discussion
pull your
of the
mask down.
agenda due dates.
Okay, where would you like
Just
to
a
put that?
brief one. Anywhere is fine, Mayor. Please.
Maybe we'll call that G under new business after we approve minutes. Would that be okay?
Yes, sir. Fine. Thank you.
Anything else, anyone? Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the
I
agenda.
move to approve the agenda as presented with Peggy's addition.
I'll second it.
All in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to public comments. I believe John Ross has a public comment.
You registered.
John, you're up.
And just for the record, this is, the public have 5 minutes to speak.
Yes. If you pull your mask down, you'll be better.
It does, got a little mask on.
There we go.
Good. Welcome back. You guys did very good work while you were all away. I've been on probably 1,000 Zoom meetings since March, and you actually accomplished things, which is great. It's easy to wonder when you do it. When I was thinking about welcoming everybody back to town and having live meetings, it occurred to me that we should probably do a report card, and so far, so good. Getting the crosswalks is brilliant. That was a real difference. And you see people do it, actually use it. And the strange thing is that people stop, something they did not do previously. Also, it makes a lot of difference at night. And the conversation I had with Marshall that I printed actually happened. That was the only part that I didn't make up of that article, but he did. And that accomplishment, at least 5 of his predecessors tried, and for one reason or another gave an excuse on why it was an impossible hill to climb. And you guys climbed it. So you've got a lot on your plate. The water study is going to be useful. That'll come out to some rational financial action at the end of the day. But the big one is still Delray Fire. And at the end of the day, when this commission as a body no longer meets together for whatever reason, that's what you'll be judged on. And that's the change that'll be here forever, is to get that straight. Because our finances will be figured out, and finally, you'll be able to budget not by determining how much you have left at the start, but how much you want to do going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Paul Resnick, is Paul outside? I don't know. No? Okay, we'll come back to him later. Why don't we move on then to Barbara Herrera? Hi, Barbara. Welcome.
Okay, for the record, for the public that's viewing, we're on item 5, presentations and proclamations. Item A.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. My name is Barbara Herrera, and I am here today representing Waste Management. Would you like me to keep my mask on, or may I remove it?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. Much better. I can speak clearly now.
Caught your earring on it there.
Caught my hearing. It's quite a multitasking ability that I have. Regardless, I want to thank you and of course the city manager for allowing me the opportunity to come today and introduce myself. Like I said earlier, I am representing the beautiful town of Highland Beach for Waste Management. And I'm following in the shoes, or following the footsteps and filling the shoes, if you will, of Ellen Smith, who is my colleague. Ellen has not abandoned Highland Beach. We've simply been reassigned to different jurisdictions because Waste Management wants to make sure that we all know our different contracts and obviously service our partner cities. So of course, I am here today very proud and privileged to be your service provider. And I simply wanted to take this opportunity to let you and your residents know that I am here if you ever should need me. I left my cards with the city clerk. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Anybody on the board have any questions? No? Shoot.
Actually had a chance to notice some of the trucks lately.
Okay. Okay.
They look fairly new. What is the, I guess, current inventory of these trucks? Are they mostly new, or I haven't seen poorly maintained trucks, so that's a good thing. Oh, I should do, I should do that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I appreciate that observation. I can certainly tell you, let me find out what the exact age of the trucks are, but I will tell you this, that we take our service and maintenance very, very seriously. That's one of the factors that distinguishes Waste Management, of course, is our maintenance and service of our vehicles. But I'm going to be very happy to communicate your comment to our operations team. And if you'll allow me, I'm going to go ahead and give you an answer. So you'll
Very
have
good.
that for your records.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Oh, thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you for joining us. Okay, we'll move on to announcements. There are 2 vacancies on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. There's one on the Financial Advisory Board. Meetings and events, it's in the agenda. You can review them for yourself. I'll move on to a board action report that came to us from the Code Enforcement Advisory Board meeting on October 29th, and I'll refer that to Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. As some may have watched the Code Enforcement Board and the issue that came up where the Code Enforcement Board asked for clarification from the commission as it relates to the accessory use provision application to the meet and bound lots that are in question. We have provided that over to Glenn in his office. They're taking a little bit of a deeper dive to make sure we approach this properly. That is a relatively unique situation, especially with those being meets and bounds lots. and how do you apply accessory when an accessory use is the primary use. So Glenn's taking a look at that now, and hopefully will give us some information. We should be able to get back to you maybe at the next meeting, something a little bit more formal interpretation, or what kind of positions we may have in our, how strong our position is if we are to continue down the path of enforcement. So we'll be able to bring that back to you hopefully by the 17th with something a little bit more formal after a little more research.
Okay,
Thank you,
we'll leave it
Marshall.
at that. Okay,
Glenn, can we hear you? Let's test this out since.
All I said is thank you, Marshall.
Okay. All right. So this is our new platform here. So I'm just testing it out that we can do Zoom and live all at the same time and see the commission. So that sounds like everything's working. Good job, Tarisha.
And just so
Okay,
you know, Highland Beach is a leader in this use of this platform. So you're doing great.
did you hear what I just said? Glenn,
What was that?
Marshall's going to bill you now for 15 minutes.
Well, I can filibuster for 15 minutes, but there's not really much to say.
Okay, moving on. Thank you, Marshall. Moving on to ordinance and resolutions. This is can be found on page 10 in your package. Ordinance number 20-005, ordinance of the town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, construction sites, Chapter 25, streets, sidewalks, and bicycle walkway paths, and Chapter 30, zoning code, to provide public right-of-way permitting regulations, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability and codification, and providing an effective date. I will turn it over to Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. As the summary indicates, we brought this to the commission on August 18th. We had some discussions over right away, the purpose, the need, how this would work with creating a right of way ordinance. We moved that on to the planning board. Ingrid is here as Pat Roman, Public Works Director as well. This went to the planning board. They had a series of recommendations that they wanted included. We have incorporated those comments and suggestions into this structured draft. They've also asked for the GIS maps. You'll see those in there, which basically is, again, a next step of refining our GIS program to show the right of way so we know what spaces we're speaking to. When we put that out there, I'm sure each of you, along with myself, have received some feedback from the community as it relates to regulating this. To give a little bit of history on the right of way, over the last, I would say in my tenure here, but more over the last year, a lot of discussions began to happen as to how did things get into the right of way. We'd see big utility projects or other types of underground work being conducted. We have no idea that these things were happening. We had no MOT, how long lanes were going to be closed. Because outside of it being maybe say a telecommunications install per the Metro Act, all this other work was going on, and FDOT is the only group that was regulating it, and to them issuing permits for most of this stuff. They had indicated to me in not so many words is that we're not going to notify you every time something happens. They said they would make an effort, but they weren't going to guarantee it. And we had a lot of issues with water main breaks and things of that nature. So that was the main premise. And then secondarily, we had a lot of people saying, you know, how did our right of way, especially along A1A, get into its current condition? Where did the swales go? Why is there landscaping all the way up to the edge of the road when it says it couldn't? And one of the reasons we found was we had no mechanism or means to, it sounds strange when I say that, to partner with property owners to make sure that they understand these rules, and we have an opportunity to take a look to make sure, one, they're not constructing on top of any of our utilities. We're notifying people what can or can't be done, and that they're continually thinking about this stormwater management concepts when they work within the road right away. That is the importance of a swale, or an email we recently got about putting in edge drains or other type of French drains, infiltration basins, all of this BMPs to help get some of that water off the road. So we started working on this right-of-way ordinance. We all kind of took a different tact at how we looked at it. I brought in some of my experiences from my past employer where we had a lot of right-of-way work. We took in some North Palm Beach, had some good language, and we got to where we are today with how we're writing it. What I'm guessing is some people are taking a very literal review on how this is spelled out, and they could be correct, and maybe our language is a little too constraining on what work we were thinking about regulating. And some concerns over the conditions or applications required. We had people say mailboxes and putting annuals into our flower beds. That is not the spirit and intent of what we were trying to capture. We were trying to capture larger projects in the road right away to make sure they're following some level of engineering standard and they're starting to contemplate stormwater, and we have an opportunity to make sure our underground infrastructure is not impacted as part of this. So we've gotten a little bit of response. We did take it to the planning board. They had some of those same type of concerns. Let's not be over the top with it, as did the commission. I remember we had that conversation that we shouldn't be routine maintenance. And I sent that email out the other day. Routine maintenance isn't what we should be focused on. We should be focused on larger new installations within the right of way. And speaking with the team here, we're not looking at something that this is very complicated or very expensive permit. We just want an opportunity to know what's going on, to review it and ensure, one, our other parameters in our ordinances are followed, and Pat's got a good handle on what's going on with our infrastructure. So that brings us back to today. So I could answer any questions that you may have.
Let's start with John.
So my reaction, I went through this twice last night. It just seems very comprehensive. It shows a great deal of knowledge about all of the possibilities. I agree that it probably goes too far because, I mean, it almost encourages people not to do anything. Because if you have to go through a permitting process and all this other thing, it becomes such a overriding effort that I don't know if people want to do it or just do it on their own. The hell with it, and just go forward with what they want to do, regardless of what the town says. So my reaction is very well written, very comprehensive, very complete, almost to a fault. If there was a way to kind of simplify, and that's just my general reaction to a lot of these ordinances, is that they're so long and complicated that it drives the average citizen into, what the heck are you doing to me? I feel like I'm struggling in molasses here. So if there's a way to shorten this, make it more simple, the language a little more simple so people can easily understand, bang, 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 and get them to comply and understand the value of it. I think that would be critical. Otherwise, we're going to get a lot of pushback on this. It's going to be viewed as really an overreaching of our local government in an area where we want them, obviously, to work with us. I mean, we don't want them to do what's been done in the past, which is, the hell with the town, I'm going to do what I want to do, and they, go forward. So that's my reaction. I'm not going to go through a line-by-line kind of conversation here, but there's got to be a way for us in general to have a mode of operation as a town to keep these ordinances simple, understandable by the average citizen out there, without creating not only ill feeling, but an effort to resist or ignore it. Thank you.
Does anybody disagree with what John just said?
I'm even more right than where he is. I think we should scrap the whole thing.
Let's start over again.
What's that?
scrap it and start all over again. Simplify it.
Yeah, I'm
Well-
happy to make my comments now.
Much of it we
actually.
don't even need.
Yeah,
I think,
I got an idea. Let me throw it out to the commission. At the last meeting, or maybe the meeting before last, we talked about a commissioner sponsoring an ordinance. And I think what John just said made sense. And then what Greg added to it even made more sense. We almost don't need it. But we do need something because we don't want the utilities coming in and not telling us. And we obviously don't want people digging down 6, 8, 10 feet to plant, a big tree, because that's kind of like stupid, foolish. So I would suggest if John would take the assignment to be the first one to sponsor an ordinance, because what you said makes sense. And take on the assignment to sponsor this ordinance. Start all over again, simplify it, make it very understandable, and don't get into flowers. Okay. But deal with the key issues here and go back to where Marshall was at the beginning of what we need to prevent. And, don't worry about homeowners putting flowers in the right of way and see where we go. What do you think?
may I make some comments?
Please.
I fully agree, actually. And the way I understood this is we need something that regulates gas, electric, cable, big stuff like that. Limit it to
That's the
that.
big stuff. Yeah.
And if you want to have something there for drainage improvements, great. But like-kind replacements, routine maintenance, that sort of stuff, no permits, no restrictions, no notice, no nothing,
Right.
no regulation. Keep it to that, defined to those large projects only. And by the way, I'm pretty sure, because Jeff Kleiman sent it around, I'm pretty sure we have an ordinance that already discusses the telephone. Why don't we just add gas and cable to that? Why are we writing something new?
But Jeffrey Kleineman wrote something, and I like to pick the things out of what he writes that I really like. And, I'm human. Some of the stuff I like, some I don't like. But he mentioned swales. If somebody's going to put a swale in, which we really like, but we haven't defined how to put swales in, what swales are acceptable, what aren't acceptable, et cetera. So we need to include something like that. And we need to work on the definition of swales, et cetera. So it is a little more expansive than what you're saying, but let's not go overboard. That's all.
I agree that we need to define some of these things. You don't want somebody putting in a swale but doing it improperly.
Correct.
And also, particularly on the side streets, you don't want people coming all the way out to the road because they don't have sidewalks. So it impedes people going back and forth. So there has to be some regulation and some common sense. Anybody who needs a permit for what they're doing, I assume you need a permit to build a driveway. There's a difference between replacing part of it and building a new driveway.
Let's just be careful and not try to solve everything with this one
Yeah,
ordinance.
no, but what I was
Otherwise,
going
we're
to
going
say
to get
is
right back where we are right now.
anything that needs a permit anyway to be done isn't an issue at this point.
Right. Agreed.
Because then you've got to do it to begin with.
For sure.
So this is just other things, but you're right. It should not be bushes and hedges and things, as long as people understand that it still is a right of way and they don't own that property.
Right.
It may be there and connected to their property, but they really don't own it. So if something happens and their shrubs have to be pulled out, they understand that they don't really have a right to put them there.
Marshall, don't we have a line of sight rule of some form?
To some standards, if you're at an intersection, there are sight lines that have to be maintained and can't be obstructed. Generally, FDOT has some standards. They, whether they apply it or not, to how close you can make improvements or installations to the edge of the road. But again, like they said, they're just not taking an active role in regulating that. They're just not. But there are some engineering standards of what can be placed into a right of way and proximity, things of that nature. We could try to make maybe reference to that as a generalization, that if you are making installations, that you follow some of these
Okay.
road design. There's like a manual that road engineers follow, that you could say that, that this book should be referenced when doing it, because you're right, you don't want some type of large shrub material planted at the side of the road and it protrudes 6 feet into the road. You just don't want that. And then there are some ADA standards, especially when you have an expanded shoulder that's used for walk and biking. You usually have to have 2-foot clearance off that. We don't. And, that's FDOT's given us that, feedback before, but they're not stepping in to do this. So,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I just want to stress, let's not fall into the trap that we're in right now of trying to solve everything with this one ordinance. Let's go back to where John started and where Greg is. Let's be simple on it. And, if we can take care of 80% of the problems, we're 80% ahead. Okay? John, if if you could come back to us at the next meeting, not with an ordinance, just with an outline, just purely an outline of what you think you want to cover in it.
I accept your challenge.
Okay, man. And if anybody has any ideas, shoot them to Marshall. I know we can't communicate directly, so send them to Marshall and, he'll pass them along.
Mayor, I have some comments too, if I might.
Please jump in. Yeah,
All righty.
please.
I think we need to remember that, of course, FDOT manages, though they do not actively manage, the A1A corridor. I have a question about literally, maybe Glenn can answer. On the side streets, the 6 side streets, we have an ongoing conversation in one neighborhood, that's mine, as do the people own the property to the street, or does the town own that right-of-way strip? Now, the setback at the front is 25 feet, and our codes prohibit building in the setback at the front. And so there could be no gazebo, telephone booth, whatever you want in there.
It's right there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, but could you weigh in? We have residents claiming they own to the street and others claiming the town of Highland Beach owns it. If you could clarify.
They do own to the street as their property is defined as meets and bounds or within the plat. However, a right of way is like an easement. So there are restrictions on your use within that area. And we have, so basically Glenn can use the fancier legal words, but basically we have the right to manage that easement and that right of way for the road. So you have some property that you have to maintain and you have the use of, but again, it's restricted that it really falls to the town for use as necessary. There are limitations on what you can do. Similar to some folks have drainage easements. It's your property, but there might be a pipe, a structure that is maintained, and the town has the right to come in and take care of it.
For the sake of clarity, though, the right-of-way does not go to the 25-foot.
No, it doesn't either. No.
No.
It's it's 20 feet from the center of the road, I think it is, something like that. It's defined as a distance from the center of the road.
Is the right of way measure correct?
Yes.
So
So
basically your property,
Right.
Probably closer to 5 feet into the property. Got it, 25 feet.
so again, just for public record, Pat said 25 feet from the center, 50 feet in total width.
However, our codes do prohibit building a structure in that front
Oh,
setback.
yeah.
So perhaps some people don't understand that. A mailbox notwithstanding. Now, if you'll notice on the single family homes, the pillars that hold, say, a driveway gate or a decorative pillar, they are set back because of that setback. You cannot put a pillar right at the street if you're following code. Am I right, Marshall?
Technically, but I can't speak to every
Technically.
potential
Yes, sir.
placement.
So we can consider that. And I have always been under the impression that the right-of-way is to be kept fairly clear for walkers where there are no sidewalks, as Evelyn noted, and for cars in distress being able to pull off or run off the road and so forth. And now I've noticed 2 things on side streets, on all 6 of them. People seem to be piling things into that area. There are rocks, there are actually large pieces of cut logs standing on end so that if you hit it, it might damage the tire. There are those triangular cones to prohibit you from running over the grass. 10 years ago, those would have been pulled out by the town in the old days. So I'm just pointing out Those are sometimes an issue.
Stay
And,
with that for a moment, please.
Yep. What was
I
that?
guess we have to decide if we want to enforce that or not.
Yes, sir.
Do we want to ignore it or do we want to do something about it? And
Right.
that's, as a commission, that's what we're here for.
Yes, I understand. So that would be I think that's all of my comments there. Oh, one other thing I noted in the codes, just looking around, we specify what type of grass may be planted. And though this isn't a big deal, more and more polyurethane grass is going in neighborhoods. And that should be considered. It's claimed it's a good drainage, but I don't know that it is. I'm not any authority on that. But in other words, the fake grass. We okay in our codes and our building that there are two types of grass that we approve. So we might want to look at that.
Let's
That's
go
it.
back to
So
the other item you brought up. Do we want to discuss it? Do we want to ignore it? Do you want to table it and bring it up at a later date? The
Why don't we
items that
discuss
people
at
are
least a
putting.
little bit.
right.
I think Peggy is right. I don't think, I mean, that really is coming too, if it's that close to the road that somebody's going to damage a tire,
They will.
then it shouldn't be there.
But do we want to
Yeah.
instruct code enforcement to deal with it or not?
How prevalent is this?
Well,
Yeah.
due to construction, it became prevalent. I will tell you, actually, I found out something else walking the dog. More wires were undergrounded on South Tranquility, again, without permission. In other words, there are now about 12 or 14 homes where the utilities have come in and undergrounded television, cable, and what else would be the low hanging tier? I guess that would be it. And those, again, no one noticed. One day they're hanging above and one day they're below the driveways. They snake them under the driveways and so forth. And so when they came through to do that, they threw out some of those cones in neighboring properties. But if I could also say, I think it would be great if the five of us could hash out a few things and give it to John and Marshall, because sometimes we talk about something and then send it off and it comes back all lathered differently than maybe we
I
intend.
agree with
So
you.
that's why I'm saying
I'm-
that would be great to hash it out now.
I'm sticking with it.
Great.
You know, either we deal with it or we don't deal with it.
Yes, sir.
I guess one of the questions is we don't know how prevalent it is and we really, all we know about is what you just said.
Yes, sir.
So do we want to send somebody out to take photos? So the next meeting we look at it? and
Yeah,
we know
let's see
how
what it is.
prevalent
Let's take photos and let's see exactly what we're talking about. And then we can discuss it better.
Okay, Marshall, would you take care of that for us? So at the next meeting, we can review it?
So you want photos of obstructions as it relates to,
In the on the side streets, items that people have put in the right of way. You know, and they put them there to keep people from parking there, keep people
Oh,
from
yeah.
driving over.
Sure.
They're rocks, they're other debris, I guess
Mm.
it's
They're on A1A too,
logs.
sir.
et cetera.
Yeah, they're on
Except
A1A
there's
too.
no parking on A1A, so it's a little bit different.
I understand, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure they,
Well, let's start with the side streets. Let's
Okay.
deal with that. And then if they're on A1A, we'll take that up next.
Yes, sir.
okay?
Okay, I do like one portion of this. You need to keep
Then we'll know how prevalent it is, what it looks like, and we'll make some decisions.
the insurance portion because we need to be indemnified. If somebody is doing construction and someone walks by and gets hurt, we don't want to be sued. Or we don't want to be truly held liable. We want somebody else to be liable because they're the ones creating the problem.
So can I respond?
Please do.
I see this project then as being, taking the existing ordinance, considering what was proposed, combine that into a simplified ordinance that provides mandatories as well as guidelines, and provide an outline of those at our next meeting that then could be turned into a first read kind of draft.
Correct.
Am I reading all that right?
Yes, you are. Everybody agree? Okay,
Got it.
thank you. Thank you for accepting the assignment too. Okay, are we done with that? Move on. There is no consent agenda. Move on to unfinished business, which is the water revenue sufficiency rate study, which we're all looking forward to reviewing.
Oh, yes.
Marshall, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I apologize to the commission and to those in the public. We got some updates from the consultants late yesterday afternoon as it relates to being able to change the last, what they call the initial recommendation, what is the revised recommendation, which addresses the items that I had spelled out in the memorandum, which was to look at 2 home communities, that's Ocean Grand, Ocean Cove. We looked at those and agreed that those should be handled as single-family properties, though, even though they are a single meter read. So we've converted that in the data. So you'll see some minor tweaks, as I had mentioned, that you would see in the yearly revenue by class, even though we've aimed to make changes to reduce the amount of increase. When you add 40 properties into the single family class, you're going to see an increase in total revenue generated. So it's not that it was just a single family. The other things that we looked at, there was a conversation in summary that we move $1 million from our general fund reserves because of its healthy condition to help offset some of the increases over this 5-year forecast period. So the model does incorporate that. We also work with the consultants to say, we initially contemplated a $4 million project. Again, take that down to $1.5 million, and hopefully that's on the conservative side of things as we're getting more and more information from our consulting teams kind of evaluating the condition and health of the sanitary sewer. So we brought that down. And then the last one is well, you'll still see increases on a declining basis. That means it's not perfectly even distribution on moving the debt over. We wanted to take what may be perceived as a little bit of the aggressive nature of the first year increases and push those into years 2 and 3. So that's what you would see in here. You have the revised presentation that Robert and Mark are going to give us as to the changes there and walk us through what we're looking at. We also, the commission wanted to see various other types of samples of rate structures. I believe I emailed about 12 of those sample structures to the commissioners to take a look at what goes around different types a little bit so you can have a little more background. We did not change any of the spreads in the tiers or the number of tiers at this point. So we just wanted to focus on these items to see what these variables would do to the initial recommendation. With that, then I would think it would be a good time to turn it over to Mark and Robert. I could see them there on the screen and have them walk through their revised presentation, which Teresa can bring up. I see Mark there. We got Pat here too. So we can hopefully address any questions and respond as best we can. So Mayor, if you don't mind, turn it over to Robert and Mark to go ahead and do that. All right, gentlemen. I can see them there on the screen. Walk through their revised presentation, which Teresa will bring up. I see Mark there. We got Pat here too. So address any questions. It's YouTube. When people watch YouTube, when they're watching this rather than watching it on cable, you're going to have a delay. So good. Robert, Mark, are you there?
Can you hear us?
Gentlemen?
Can you hear us? Should we go ahead and get started or?
Edward, I see you guys up there. Can you test out the audio? Can you talk a few minutes here and introduce this so we can get the volume adjusted?
Yeah, this is Rob Ori, Raptalis, with me, Mark Tuma, lead analyst for the project. And happy to be here today and see everybody actually back in the chambers. That's great. Hope you all are doing well. And is that, can you hear me okay? Or So, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, great, good. Thank you. We'll go ahead and we have a brief presentation for you. Y'all have heard a lot of the discussions earlier about the rates and whatnot. So I thought what we would do is, if you go to the next slide, please, for the next several minutes, is talk about the changes made to the financial forecast. Marshall's already pretty much touched on that. We'll just go through again real quick, present the findings, observations of proposed rates, and then give you our recommendations, answer any questions you may have, get other directions you may like to see as we move forward with the water and sewer rate evaluation. Next slide. As Marshall kind of mentioned, I'd like to go through this again. What were some of the changes? We did reclassify those residential customers from multifamily to residential. That was mentioned before. The $1 million transfer to the general fund for capital improvements was a very positive move for the utility system, as it reduced our needs for rates. That was also followed up with the reduction in the capital costs of the sewer system. By doing both of those items, we were able to eliminate the proposed sewer debt issue that we had in the prior runs, which was very positive for the utility. We did modify the utility debt repayment schedule, made it a little bit less aggressive. Instead of taking a percentage adjustment downward, 80%, 60%, 40, 30, 20, excuse me, for say a levelized percentage, we did more of a levelized dollar decrease, around $95,000 to $100,000 per year reduction. And we thought that may be a little better. It's not quite as aggressive. But the other point is, with your existing debt, you have debt maturing, so you have changes there going on. We tried to make it a little bit more levelized in terms of dollar reduction to the amount of debt that's being funded from water and sewer rates than before. And then we delayed it, of course. Another important point is we have now crossed fiscal years. We're past October 1st. And so the city, the town did have a program 3% rate adjustment built into the rates, which was implemented in October. And so any rate adjustment that we're bringing forward today is being suggested to be delayed until April 1st, about 6 months into the fiscal year. That also benefits the ratepayers by the fact they have roughly 6 months, 5 months of reduced rates until any proposed rates go into effect. Those are I would say those are the major changes. Most were very favorable. The delay in the rate increase does affect income a little bit, but it isn't. It's not something that's not doable, to say the least. Next slide, please. This kind of shows you what the effects of all those adjustments were being made for the fiscal years 21 through fiscal year 25. The first set of the chart is water, then wastewater, then total. And you can see that the revenue requirements significantly decreased, especially in the middle of the forecast period, as we avoided debt, as we got infusion, as we modified the general fund transfers. And these benefits, whether it's water, wastewater, and then as a total, you can see over $500,000 of benefit in 2023 and really continuing on, serves to reduce the rate adjustments over time, allowed a reduction in phase-in. So it was a very positive financial effect on the rates from a customer service standpoint and a rate implementation standpoint. Next slide, please. This kind of gives you a little bit of a side-by-side presentation of the revenue requirements, the initial forecast on the left, the revised forecast, which the rates are now going to be based on to the right, has all those modifications in it. And although the graphs look somewhat similar, there's some subtle differences. The blue portion of the graphs, and what this, first let me take a step back. What this graph shows you
is the bars are the expenditure needs, the funding requirements from water and sewer rates combined. By way of example, in 2020, that's on here, you need about 5.2, we have about $5.2 million in revenue requirements. That's the blue and red added together. The blue represents expenses. The red represents debt service and whatnot, and then R&R. Oh, the senior liens. And so that's what that does. What you see, the blue doesn't really change all that much, or whatever, pretty much stays the same. But if you look at the red, the debt service, it changes a lot because we had less debt being issued on the new forecast, i.e. that sewer bond has been eliminated now. And if you look at the last bar, 2025, you can see the contraction in the debt service component, that red portion. That represents the maturity of your bonds. So the amount of debt now being paid is decreasing. So that's why we changed that general fund subsidy amount to more of a levelized. And that's what we've done here. The rates in both, based in both instances, our goal was to try to meet the revenue requirements of the tail end with some minor adjustments, maintain fiscal position, maintain cash at strong levels, strong debt service coverage, and also initiate an R&R transfer or capital reinvestment. And the revised forecast does meet that. And from a fiscal standpoint, I think the utility stays in a very positive position over the next 5 years with the rate adjustments. Now, this is the proposed rate adjustments expressed on a percentage basis. Something a little different on this chart. You'll see the first two columns there. October 1, 2020 in effect is the first column on the left. April 1st, 2021 proposed. These two kind of columns represent the fiscal year 21 rate adjustments. Again, I was mentioned earlier, one of the changes made was there was a 3% adjustment. It went into effect on October 1st for the fiscal year. So we wanted to show that. That was more of an index adjustment, inflation type analysis as we assumed it, and that's the 3%. We maintained the water adjustment of 10.5%, the additional adjustment of about 10.5%. And the sewer adjustment dropped significantly. It was around 25%. And now when you take the 16.5 plus the 3 at 19, it's about a 6% overall reduction in totality, which is significant. And the other was. So, and the water did, actually the water did decrease a little bit as well. It used to be approximately 15%, now around 13.5%. So the first year increases, when we go through the whole process as of April, the rates are reduced because of those positive financial adjustments you made or asked us to make. Those positive adjustments continue on. Just by way of example, water in October 1st of 21, for which is fiscal 22, was about 12%. Now it's 11. And then, and also it was 12% in October 122, now 10%. So you can see, and the same occurrences are for wastewater as well. To bring it down to overall terms, in 2025, the average reduction in the bill is about $6.50 per month at 6,000 gallons of monthly use, which is really pretty low. We want to keep it low because the multifamily is around the 5,000, but it's around $4 to $5 a month reduction, which is significant. So you can think if you use a lot more water, obviously that percentage increase or dollar increase, goes up. Very, very favorable. This will lead to maintaining very competitive rates, which we'll discuss in a minute, which we're very, very proud to see. So, so again, just in summary with this, revenue requirements reduced and the corresponding rates also adjusted as well. with most of the adjustment occurring in the first several years. Well, that's one I do want to mention. We wanted to get back in the last couple of years, 23, 24, October 1st issues where the cursor is. We're trying to get back to that same level and put most of the adjustment up in the near term as much as possible to give immediate benefit to the customer, which we thought was the best thing to do. With that, next slide, please. So how did that affect the rates? Just by way of rehashing what you have today, the rates for water on the left-hand side of this chart. This was the 2021 rates with the 3% addition. So you may be thinking something a little different from before. This does have that 3%, but again, you have a flat charge for water, and then you have your 3 tiers for your customers, with the multifamily second tier being different than single family and commercial, even though the rates are all based on a per EDU per unit basis. Sewer, as we all know, flat rate, no usage charge today. What we propose for water, next slide, please. Again, maintain the structures, the existing structures on the left for comparative purposes. On the right, when we talked about a few weeks ago, I guess now, the 2021 rates, again, a flat charge, maintain the flat charge per unit. We recommended 4 blocks, with the first block being increased just slightly from 0 to 19 to 0 to 20. We did that to have a indoor use provision at 10,000 gallons per month, which is generous. And that's how we got to the 20,000 gallons. Why we did the 10,000 per month or 20,000 for every 2 months was that going to a flow-based rate for sewer. We want to have a billing cap, and we want to try to tie it to indoor use. So this first block is indoor use. The second block, we maintain the same level, 20,000 gallon increase. It's a little bit less than your existing blocks, but the rate is also less. And part of the reason for that is the multifamily adjustment going from that 299 you see on the left-hand side, that very low rate, being also adjusted and be consistent with all the other classes on a per unit basis. Then you can see thereafter every 20,000 gallons up to the 60,000 gallon threshold. Reason why we picked these relationships, besides indoor use, it reflects an average level of service, about 350 gallons per day, which is consistent with Florida Department of Environmental Protection general guidelines for ERC flows. 20,000 gallons would be indoor use for a bi-monthly period. Discretionary use at 40,000, some irrigation, outdoor water use, or if a large family, additional indoor use. And then we get to more of those excessive use blocks as the price rises. Because we've lowered the rates a little bit with the benefits for fiscal 21, there's a slight reduction in rates, as you can see. Same structure, but the rates themselves went down a little bit, as you can see on the right-hand side, which is very positive. The wastewater it has the same trend. Next slide, please. Again, left-hand side is the current rate. We maintain a flat charge to all customer classes as before. And you can see residential service, which would also include multifamily service per unit, that 20,000 gallon bi-monthly use. It caps at that level. It was 256. We talked to you a week or so ago. Commercial, all gallons are billed, and now those rates have declined slightly, a little bit bigger increase in the flow charge, again, due to the benefit of the revenue requirement revisions you provided. And these rates are a little bit more, had a little bit more reduction to them. Again, a lot of the reduction was in the wastewater program. For example, the removal of the increased debt. So as we phase this in over time, we gave a little more benefit on the wastewater side, as you can see here, which we are very, very happy to see. With that, let me go to the next slide. I think if we go into the Excel spreadsheets real quick, I want to just kind of talk to you about how the effects All right, and if I multitask, slow me up real quick or ask any questions, please. I meant to say it earlier. What I'd like to do is go to the middle slide first, the blue slide, if you don't mind. Thank you. That's perfect. That's perfect. Again, as a reminder, in terms of your customer classes, I'm starting left, going to right. These are the EDUs on the system, or dwelling units. As you all are very well aware, a lot of multifamily customers, making up almost 88% of your customer demographic, so to speak. Water and sewer is the same. They generally receive service. And then we have on the water side, those are the billed water flows. And this is part of the issue. You look at the residential class, single family, they're about 10% of the customers with that conversion of those customers being removed from multifamily to single family. Yet they use about almost over a third of the water use, 34% in 2019. And you can see the others. So it's very interesting. A small amount of customers use a lot of the water demand, as you're well aware. What we're recommending, if you move to the green chart, please, I would greatly appreciate that. This kind of shows you the makeup of the revenues and the rates. Let's per se, if you look at fiscal 21, the existing rates, that's based on with the 3% increase. The single family class produces about 28% of the revenues right now. Multifamily 68%, and then commercial at 3% for water. But it's more pronounced on the wastewater side, as you all remember, because of that flat charge, no flow. It puts much more emphasis on revenue recovery to the multifamily class. They have the most units. That you can see it on the blue chart to the right a little bit. It's still there. They have 87% of the units. So by the fact that it's a flat charge, as you can imagine, most of the revenue that is generated in that flat charge. The key is to shift that when you go to a volumetric rate, that shifts the revenue recovery away from multifamily to residential and commercial. If you look at the middle charts, it's called initial recommendation. That was these are the rates and the revenues from those proposed rates in 2021 that we discussed last week or so, or a week or so ago. Where the cursor is, you can kind of see them. The increase to residential is about 12.5%. It's higher than the multifamily on water, but still commercial has the highest increase. If you look at the revised recommendations, it tends to shift more dollars, a little bit more dollars to the residential single family class away from multifamily and commercial. And it's more pronounced on the sewer side than on the water side, but you can kind of see the feel. The general relationships are still the same. The revenues are less, as you can see. Where the cursor is right now, $2,395,000 is less than the 21 annualized numbers, as well as sewer being $52,000 less, the 1,403 number on that total compared to the annualized total, the 1,455. So there is a reduction in revenue, a little bit more of a change in recovery for the benefit of the multifamily class a little bit, but still the same general trends we presented to you before. If you go to the very far right, to the peach colored graph, this kind of tells you what the rate, the effective per gallon rate is for service. And how this is calculated, we take all the revenue generated divided by the gallons sold, say what's the effective gallon rate. This would include base charge revenues and flow charge revenues. And as you can see, on the existing 2021, the residential class has the lowest rate for water and the second lowest rate for sewer, but the multifamily class is pretty high. With the adjustments, that tends to get a little bit more corrected. And with the revised recommendations, you can see that under 2020 revised, Although it's still a higher multifamily rate, it's not nearly as much as before. Multifamily residential is getting a higher increase. That is, what is that? Sorry about that. Our phone started ringing for some reason. And that is more pronounced on sewer than water. And as you all remember, because you're going to that flow-based rate, it moves revenue recovery from multifamily really more predominantly to the residential class. But still, the multifamily rate on a per effective rate is still a little higher. And that kind of makes some sense because you are recovering a base charge per unit, just like residential, but there's less flow per unit. So their effective rate should be a little higher. But I think when you look at those relationships, they tend to narrow a little bit. I think that's a lot fairer in terms of recovery, yet it makes sense why they could be different. And I was pleased to see the results and whatnot. If I can go back to the presentation, please. There you go. You're doing great. This is the comparison at 25,000 gallons for the residential class or for ERC class. The town's rates are the light blue, light red colors, and everybody else is the dark. Blue is water, red is wastewater, just so you know. The town's 2020 rates are about the fifth one over, pretty low. When you add in the 3% increase, it's the competitive position did not change. And then when you add in the full adjustment in April 1st, 2020, it goes up to about $152 per a month, 25,000 gallons of monthly use. These are monthly comparisons. I know, although you bill bi-monthly, we showed monthly because almost everybody else on here bills monthly. And you're still very, very competitive compared to your peers and your neighbors. And like we've mentioned before, several of these utilities are either adjusting rates in the near term or have rate studies underway right now. I can go through these if you'd like, but one of them I know is probably very close to you would be the Village of Gulf. They are in the process of rate study right now. They're having some capital needs, and I expect that rate to move a bit. So that's just one, but I'd say the majority of these utilities have some form of rate adjustment. And the point I'm trying to get to is we mentioned before, although your rates are going up, I think your competitive position when they do their rate adjustments going on in the years, it will improve a little bit, but not get worse than what you are today, which is great. So I was real pleased to see that. And actually, it looks better than before because there's rate reductions going on here, so it's great. Next slide, please. What the results of the phasing the rates and the rate adjustment, allows you to fully fund your capital plan, including the collection system, piping, rehab. I really believe the town's financial position promotes a favorable credit position. If you do need to issue additional debt funded over time by enterprise fund or utility rate revenues, I think that it is doable. If that's the way the process you go, it does allow for the debt repayment from the enterprise fund to be, the general fund transfers be reduced as we talked over time, a very programmed reduction, so that by 2026 you'll fully be relieved of that allocation. It does promote a strong financial position, just the position I mentioned earlier. Some of the things that I'm proud to see is your revenue margins are increasing over time. The revenue margin is the amount of money left over after you pay your operating and maintenance expenses. It's the amount of money available for debt and capital. That relationship is growing over time, which we felt is good. That what that does, it provides increased funds for capital reinvestments, depreciation expense, which then also helps minimize the need for future debt if we can avoid that, which I think is really good from the town's perspective. You maintain a strong liquidity position, which reduces risk, and as I mentioned earlier, your rates stay competitive. So I think the outcomes of where you all are moving, the adjustments you have made, promotes a very healthy utility. Now, with these comments, this does recognize the phase-in of the 5-year rates. We really need to do that to achieve some of these goals, like the debt reduction. But it's very, very manageable, and I still think you meet all these provisions, even with the increase in rates and whatnot. So I think it's very, very good. Next slide, please. I think that may be it. We consider a rate resolution. I would propose adopting the 5-year plan of the utility implementation plan in the resolution that guarantees those rate adjustments will occur. At least they're codified, and I think that's very favorable. And of course, move towards a new water and wastewater rate structure, which with the primary change being the flow charge on the wastewater side. Obviously, with any plan, you do this part of your budget process, part of your annual auditing process. Continue to monitor the financial rate position to make sure we stay with the plan that you all have identified and how we've modeled in the study. I think your plan is good and produces a favorable benefit. And with that, I think that may be it. Yep. So with that, any questions, comments, thoughts, new directions? We're here to answer any questions you may have or supplement staff.
Okay, while we have you, we'll obviously start with some questions. Maybe we'll start with Evelyn this time.
I like the idea of not having a complete flat charge on wastewater. I think that you pay, my ideas on all of it really is you pay for what you use. We need some flat rate so that we know that we're assured of a certain level of income to cover our operating expenses. My question really is, does it cost less to produce, less per gallon when you produce more than when you produce less? I mean, is there an economy of production?
Well, this is Rob, and I don't know, Matt, Marshall, you may want to jump in. In terms of gallon to gallon, the marginal cost at some point starts dropping as you produce more. As you can imagine, each gallon you increase, it's only the variable costs, chemicals, power, things of that nature. That being said, the rates are generally designed on an average cost basis, not marginal cost basis. That's what you have here, and it's consistent with other local governments and the Florida Public Service Commission, rate application process. But from a marginal basis, it does cost. Could cost less. That's correct.
Okay. Really, the reason I was asking that was because I saw that Boca's rates are lower, but they have to produce a lot more water than we do. So I was wondering if that could factor in.
Now that's a very, very good observation. Boca, you are absolutely right, has a very high water use, monthly water use per customer. Compared to a lot of the utilities. Jupiter is kind of in that same boat, but not nearly as advantageous as Boca's is. And you are right that if you're a 10,000 gallon a month user and all my customers are 50,000 gallon a month users, that unit cost could drop just by the fact that I'm using a lot more. And I think that's where you're going, and
Yes.
that tends to be true. That's why Boca's rates are usually on the lower end, Jupiter's on the lower end, because they can spread over more gallons. Ironically, the water management districts and the industry want you sell less widgets, less water for conservation, if that's where you make your money. And it's kind of inverse of what we need to do, but your thought process is correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John?
So that was my first question is, why the heck is Delray and Jupiter so low overall? Beyond what was just discussed, is there something more to the reason why they're so low?
For Boca?
Oh, because you know everything you've just read. No, I'm kidding.
Jupiter, he's saying why is Jupiter so low?
Oh, why is Jupiter so low?
So my question is, notwithstanding what we just talked about with Commissioner David, why is it that it is so low? I mean, both Delray and Jupiter, I mean, compared to any of these towns, it's a remarkable thing, although clearly they got some problems in Delray, and they probably have done what they should have done, and their costs should be a lot higher. But in the meantime, I don't know if their costs will dramatically go up. But Jupiter is not in a scandal. So what is it that they're doing that we're not doing?
Well, I think you're doing a lot. First of all, what Jupiter is a different animal, I think, a little bit. Number one, they have high water use per customer all around. The second is they had a lot of growth over the past, gosh, what's the medical company? No, not Abbott. Anyway, they had not Abacoa, but they had a lot of growth in that area, and they got a lot of impact fees, and growth masks a lot of issues. So they had a lot of external cash where you don't have a lot of that. We are using your impact fees for debt repayment, but I think that also helps. What's ironic for Jupiter is their wastewater costs are from the Loxahatchee district, and those rates are incredibly low, and I don't really understand why. Because if you look at the blue, they're not the lowest blue, but they're clearly one of the lowest reds. And so I think that's part of the reason why they're so low, is the amount of growth they've had with impact fees and all sorts of additional revenue streams that you aren't getting right now. Maybe one reason. A lot of more, another reason also could be, Councilman or Commissioner, that they have a lot of commercial there, a lot of commercial customers to spread that, where you are really primarily almost all residential, which is a little different. Commercial flows are generally higher per account than residential per account or unit. That may be playing into that as well. And a lot of dedicated facilities from the new growth as well. So that may be part of the reason why, but they are very attractive.
Okay, another question. If I could ask you to go to slide 6, proposed unit rate revenue adjustments on a percentage basis.
Yes. Hold on.
And I look at water recommended rate adjustments, percentages by year. So for next year, we're looking at 11% increase, if I'm reading this right, for overall for the town for
Yes.
water will be an 11% increase. Plus there's a 13% increase for wastewater according to this rate schedule. But I don't understand, it's the last line, total recommended adjustment, 11.74. Is that just averaging it out, or how'd you?
Pretty much what it is because your customers receive water and sewer service, you're absolutely right. If we only had 11% water increase and a 0% sewer increase, what is the percent total bill increase to the customer? So it really is kind of an average that the overall increase to the bill will be 11.74%. Both water and sewer will go up on this recommendation, but that average is about 11.7 when you look at a combined bill to combined bill. So it's really kind of like an average. You are right.
Well, I think that 11 that really adds up to 10. I think it may be a typo. Underwater, 2.5 and 7.5. It's 10.
So that's 10. That's 10. That's a typo. Is that right? Yes, it is. We'll check.
No, it's
It's supposed to be 8.5. It's supposed to be 11 is correct. 7.5 should be 8.5. That's my error.
I'm sorry, which one?
The 7.5 there should be 8.5.
The 1174 is correct.
Yeah, and then the 2.5 and 9, 2.5 and 9.5.
Yeah.
Well, not 13.
In fact, the 9.5 should be 10. I don't know how I missed this. That's my fault. 9.5 should be 10.5. 7.5 should be 8.5. I can't change it, but maybe you can change it later.
The totals are right.
Yes, the totals are right.
All right.
That's correct. That's what's in the model.
That's what would
13.
drive me crazy about the last line.
Yeah.
So now I'd like to switch to on slide 9, wastewater. I'm not quite sure I understand. You have 3 blocks here. The second block, revised rate structure, it's just slightly different than the third block. And so we're saying the revised rate structure is as of April 1? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, the one to the right is the revised structure. Both of these are April 1. The first one, the middle one should be the initial rate structure. That was what was presented to you a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. Now, because of the rate, the cost reductions in your revenue requirements, your needs, the recommended or revised structure that's being brought to you or recommended to you today would be the comparison on the right, the 2830, the 243 flow charge. That because of the benefits received from the infusion of cash, reduction of debt service, etc.
I just want to clarify that it was initial and recommended because the titles were.
Yes, it was initial recommended. That's correct.
Okay, I guess I'd like to reserve some time to study this a little bit more, honestly. I got this last night. I try to go through it. It's hard. Even the spreadsheet is a little difficult, to be honest with you. Maybe I'm not as smart as some others here, but this spreadsheet really drove me crazy when I was also struggling with what we just talked about. So I would like to reserve some time to study this a little bit more. But fundamentally, what I'm trying to make sure is for an average condo, say 100 units, these condos are looking to understand how they're going to get hit because they're right now doing their budgets, right? We're right in the middle of it. So what do I tell them? Do I tell them 15% is the number that they should plan on? Well, it depends on their number of units and so forth. So I really don't know how to give guidance, number one, based on size. Because you just have a category of multifamily, which I assume multifamily means condo.
John, if I can interrupt. He's going to give it to you. There are 5 scenarios for small, medium, and large multifamily. 5 scenario each. 5 small, 5 medium, 5 large, and then the exact same thing for single family.
Did I miss something? Did this come up?
It was a separate tab at the bottom of the Excel spreadsheet. You had 3 spreadsheets that Rob went over today, but then on the bottom of the spreadsheet, you go to sample bills. And then here Teresa's showing you, there's another tab at the bottom that says sample bills. And that's what I just provided you.
That's what
I
I
had to
missed. is the
clarify that
bottom.
earlier. So yes, most folks missed that button. And also for the condo folks, check your email box. Matt and I conferred. We sent out an email to the condo presidents, managers, our list, where I suggested they should anticipate a 15 to 20% increase over the next fiscal year. So
So
we did.
that's been emailed out.
Okay.
So they may want to pick a number in there. They could use these samples to kind of gauge it. I couldn't give a hard number on everybody's situation because we haven't settled in some case where we want to be. But again, if I could jump in just for a quick second, I thought
Go
that
ahead. Yeah.
on the presentation, when you look at, and I know it's not going to be equal for every property, every condo, but when we look at the rate structure from a 40,000 foot view, I think that was on slide 6, I believe.
Percentages on 6.
Yeah, so if you look at the bottom, where you see that if we made that change, the effective rate change in April for the system is 6%. So if we were, let's say the commission felt comfortable to move forward with the revised proposal, the net impact or effective overall rate change is 6.3% for the April. Then you go to that October 1, the effective rate combined both bills is 11.75%. So I know it's hard to understand when you see, potentially 11% in water and 13% in sewer, but a sewer is a smaller amount of your bill because we have a higher charge when you hit the usage on your water. But the effective combined bill change for the system, I think those are pretty good numbers because it's going to be difficult for you all as we continue these conversations. And that for the FAB is going to be, how do we look at every single scenario? It's a near impossibility. So at times, and that's what Rob has been speaking about in the last couple of presentations, on some point, we're going to have to look a little bit more at the system a little bit too. And rather than focused on every scenario, this condo versus that condo, we try to do our best on the samples, but it depends on the year, depends on your usage, it depends on the condo size, the single family property, the amount of weather we have. It's hard. It's going to be really difficult for you all to look at every unique scenario. But I think looking at it overall, that effectively it's 6.32% on April 1st. And the next year it's 11.75%, then 10.75%, then 5, then 2.25.
And that's for the system, and the system is the water department.
Water and sewer, yes,
Water and sewer.
combined.
So if you take a look at it, multifamily, this will say, for example, I just pulled one up. It says, here's Penthouse Towers, 138 units. And then it gives 6 different scenarios, tells you by monthly usage, how many thousand gallons. Look down at the bottom of it. This one happens to be a green one.
I'm
On the
sorry.
bottom tells you.
Coronado, you're saying, or Ambassador?
Okay, I can go to Coronado. I'll go over to Coronado. Okay, it says for Coronado, on the top left, second column, says by monthly usage, 2821. That's water gallons usage. And then it gives you 6 different examples, 3894, 3521. Are you with me?
Yeah, those, just so you know, those are the bi-monthly bills for a whole year that were actually incurred by Coronado and Highland Beach. So that's
So
right.
then it tells you how many dollars.
Yeah.
And then under the initial recommendation, how many dollars it would be. So instead of 18,000, it would be 20,800 or a 14.7% increase. And the next column over is under the revised recommendation. It would be 20,689 or a 13.8% increase. Now, if they change their gallonage usage, this tells you under current what the dollars would be, under the initial recommendation what the dollars would be and what that percent increase is, and then under the revised what it would be. And then the same thing for sewer, and then the total. So that's
So Mayor,
6 different scenarios for that particular condominium. And that's, I guess Coronado has only one source for water, only one, let me just give it- one, yeah, so that's 339 apartments.
yeah, so the 339. Did we do a look at, 50 condos,
Yeah.
100?
If you thumb through this,
They're all representing
yeah,
different
you'll
sizes. Okay,
see
that's all I
small
wanted.
ones.
Like I said, I missed that then on the
Yeah,
bottom.
and then you'll see the same thing for single-family homes. Small, medium, large usage. So that's 6 times whatever. I mean, there's like 60 different examples here. Small, medium, large, each one has 5 or 6 different examples.
Why is that? How do you use it?
Okay,
Very good, thank you. Sir.
Different use, average use.
anything else before we move on?
That's it for me.
Peggy, up to you.
Thank you. I'll have to have Marshall run a copy of those because either I missed it or my printer didn't
Can
print
we
it. so
have somebody make copies? Do you need a
Came in
copy?
late yesterday. Yes, sir, that would be great.
Greg, do you need? Okay. You
I
need
guess I
two
missed
copies.
that one. I have an interesting question that I guess Marshall will have to ask because as I was thinking about, or he will have to answer a lot of this, it hit me that, and I asked for a zoning map, it hit me that our zoning map might explain some of these billings. I don't know if it does, but I had an old zoning map from when I was coming to meetings in 2016. And I don't know if Linelda got one to put up. But the single-family homes we've been talking about who were rated as townhomes, they're actually built in multiple family home zoning. And so I don't know if that's why they were listed as such, if you follow me. And all of the townhomes on the side streets between Doug, your building, and Belito, those are all listed in multiple family home zoning. And therefore, maybe that's why they are meted as such with water. But if so, maybe this would explain some of our inconsistencies. I don't know, but Marshall, if he could answer that, or we could look into that. The single-family home zonings are pretty much just the ocean homes, a bit on the western A1A, all of Belito, and half of one side street. And that's it. Everything else is put into multiple family. So I don't know if this imbalances our rates, but I would love to have that looked into. For good or bad for anyone. I'm not in this to
Very good.
claim something. So, but I do know that I have people I know in townhouses on the side streets between your building, Doug, and Evelyn, and our area. And they have their own meters, but they're put in multiple family townhouses.
We
There are
could,
duplexes, there are quads with each their own meter, and then there are quads which are metered in one.
It might back up to the developer and how
Yes, sir.
that developer developed it.
Correct,
And it's-
right,
And it's
because,
probably based on costs, just a guess.
no, I understand all that, but maybe we could look into that and factor that in. I don't know, but it's worth a look. Because when you look at this, I'll have Marshall copy this for you all. I didn't have a copier at home. So that's question. And following that, I think that we maybe need to sort out those townhomes who are single metered and see if they're more in which grouping they belong, because it could offset the balance. There are townhomes with a fair amount of, for example, landscaping, and there are townhomes with all driveway. So I don't know if the landscaping factors in. But something else that a friend of mine in a condo pointed out, so I made a list, that the condos have more than just landscaping on their properties that require water. And a lot of them have car washes, which I didn't even know, where you can hose off your car, and they're frequently used, being especially with the salt water. I know a professional car wash, we have buddies who own one in Delray. They have to recycle their water by law. That's why they're able to work like in emergencies and everything. And then a lot of them have fountains, ponds, decorative streams. A lot of them spray the entranceways, the sidewalks, and all that. And then some of them require refilling their pools. And then there's outdoor showers and community bathrooms. So I'm just saying those are things that luckily the condos have that a single family home wouldn't have, or a townhouse. So I don't know if that further separates the townhomes, whether single or quadruple bill metered, into single family home levels. I don't know the answers, but I would like to sort that out. I think it would be good to know. And then I had a couple other questions, my notes.
Peggy, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
If the rates are the same for whether it's single family or multifamily, what difference does it make where you're placed?
Well,
Because you're
it wouldn't
paying
be
this-
if the rates were all the same, but
Well, that's what they're proposing, is
understand.
that the rates are all the same.
I understand.
So it shouldn't matter what the classification is.
I understand that, but I'm looking for the reason why they were classed when we launched into this. It just seemed to factor in.
And where's the dividing line between a multifamily townhouse and a condo?
That's what I'm trying to ascertain.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's either multifamily. If it's two, it's multi. If it's single, it's single.
But some are metered
I
with
thought
one
there
meter
were
and
four.
some are,
Then it's multi.
they're
If
differently
it's more
metered.
than one, it's multi.
Period, okay.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
They're differently metered, as I'm pointing out. It just is a fact I would like to just have everyone weigh in on. And then something that I kept looking at in the billing, I brought everything in, but I'm not going to delve into it. There are some single-family homes that are just out of this world with their amounts used. Do we have an understanding or an explanation of that? Anyone?
I'm not
There
sure
are
what
like
you're
10 or
asking.
15 homes that just have an astronomical amount of water usage.
Yes.
Do we know why? Marshall, or the water fellows?
I would say,
Do we have
what you
any
would see, the ones that
understanding
use a lot of water are usually the larger properties.
Right, I'm presuming
Lots
that.
of restrooms, a lot of use. Usually irrigation is the big driving factor that really pushes them over. What we tend to see is the irrigation volume. And then sometimes those larger homes have more features and waters, pools,
Yeah.
hot tubs, they have
Oh,
all those
hot
extra
tubs,
things
right.
too.
True, right, just wondered. And I wondered, how do we decide if the seasonality? Does it matter in these rates at all? Did we
Not at
decide
all.
it doesn't, right?
Zero.
Okay, thank you. I do know that I checked with a neighbor of mine who's here 6 months a year, and their bill was the same as ours. And so I'm thinking it was the landscaping. Is there
I-
two people
I
versus
did a lot of
4 to
research
5?
on multifamily
did.
condos.
Yes, sir.
We audited 3, and I did a lot of work on my unit, my building itself.
Okay,
And in fact, there is more water usage in the summer with less population than there is in the winter with more
Oh,
population.
and why was that?
Air conditioning and irrigation
Yeah, I understand.
and pool
Right,
evaporation.
right. And I do understand we could entertain possible irrigation standards, which
Yeah, and we have it.
There is, under the Water Utilities Department, there is an irrigation standard that isn't certainly enforced, but it's listed on our website.
The buildings, not all of them, but
Mhm.
many of the buildings, the air conditioning systems use a god-awful amount of
Oh,
water,
they do. I think one of our residents pointed that out. I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of that.
massive amount of water.
Okey doke. Okay, just one or two other things, if I could. Oh, for our consultants, I noticed there were 17 municipalities which charged just one rate, and then others were tiered. And I wondered, in general, what is the difference, how that's ascertained by municipality, one to another?
I'm not sure, and it's,
Sure. There are several municipalities which do not use a tiered rate. And I wondered why they don't use a tiered rate.
I don't know which municipalities, do you have a list? I don't,
No,
I'll
I don't
jump
have it on
in.
me. I'll bring it back next time. we
okay,
discuss.
thank you. I haven't
We'll leave
seen
it there and I'll
Marshall?
jump in here. So I
Thank
looked
you.
up that because that question did float around.
Yes,
Moorhaven. There's a condo group. in Collier County Port of, but it's like just a resort, little resort community. So when you see people, that's people that use the
Yeah.
universal rates or the uniform rates, like it's
Yes.
just, you pay X no matter how much you use. They're very small systems, very small, smaller than like small, you might have 100 customers or 200 customers, and they do it out of sake of simplicity that they're such a homogeneous group of users that they don't
I see.
look to differentiate, or they don't have a variety of customers, if you will.
I
Tends
see.
to be where they're at.
Thank you. And lastly, I wondered if that's possibly why Boca, Del Rey, and Jupiter are more consistent. They are primarily homes. Do not have a number of condos. I used to live in Jupiter, and they have one set, and that's about it. So would that factor in as an explanation? Because there are more single-family homes in those communities?
This is Rob. I know in Jupiter, there's a lot of single-family homes. I don't recall seeing a lot of multifamily, like you mentioned, a portion of a large share. They do have a significant amount of commercial there as well. And as you know, the water use in Jupiter is pretty high. Not high as Boca, but it's pretty high. And then they have a lot of irrigation demand there as well. But that would affect their rates, how they charge, and what their unit costs are. If that's your question, I would tend to think it would affect what they're looking at.
Okay, thank you. So thank you. That's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Greg, it's all yours.
Are we just asking questions of Rafaelis, or we're not doing our own discussion on this yet, right? I have lots of comments, but I don't have any questions for them.
It's up about this, and then we'll move on to our discussion.
Okay, yeah, no questions for the consultant.
Okay, let's move on to our discussion then.
Did Evelyn go or no?
Nailed it.
Go ahead. You want-
Evelyn, did you get a chance to speak fully on all this? Okay, it was short, so I didn't know if you had more.
Okay. You want to go last as usual?
I know, I'm happy to go first, last, or anything in between.
Go ahead. You got the ball. Go ahead.
Great. So again, this is for our discussion. Rafael is happy to have him listen in on it, but my general opinions on it. So I said last time in the meeting, I thought the right way to do this is to determine our fixed costs, determine our variable costs, much like Dr. Greenwald had said in the FAB. Then construct a plan where the fixed charges somewhat are proportional to the fixed costs. The variable charges are somewhat proportional to the variable costs. I think that's still the way we're supposed to do it. I don't feel any differently on that. I think we also should be constructing a plan where, and I have no problem with a tiered plan. Don't have an issue with that. But I think anyone who's a normal, somewhat miserly user should fall in tier 1, full stop. And those who want to indulge and have a little bit of extra water usage, be in tier 2, fine. And the real abusers are in tier 3. I actually don't like the tiers. I've said it many times, the way these guys have it set up, the way Rafaelis has it set up. I think it's a bit silly. We make our own water. It makes no sense to me why the majority of single family homes would all fall in tier 2, including the miserly ones. It's pretty much impossible as a single family home, even barely doing any watering, to fall in tier 1. We make our own water. Why are we punishing ourselves? It makes no sense. I liken it because I think the answer is, as they say, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Rafaelis is a hammer. Everything looks like a nail. You've got a certain framework you want to shove this into, and you're just trying to apply your framework again and again. I get it. That's your job. That's what a consultant's supposed to do. I think it's the wrong solution for us. I think we should have a tiered plan where tier 1 is great for miserly users. Tier 2 maybe has a small increase, or maybe not necessarily a small increase, but a tighter increase between tier 1 and tier 2. And where you have tier 2 and tier 3. Tier 3 increase should be a lot higher than tier 2, because that's going to be the real abusers, whether they just have massive properties, I guess, or they're just abusing. I mean, you're right about those 15 homes. There's probably 15 or 20 homes and their water use is just massive. They probably have an irrigation issue. I think we should have a conservation sort of effort. I actually think our tiers should be much higher for tier 1. And how do we get South Florida Water Management District to be okay with that? Because we make a real active conservation effort. One of the residents, Jeff Kleiman, got these special sprinklers that don't allow the yard to be watered when the land itself is too moist. Great. He's having flyers sent around to residents so they know about that. It's a great thing to do. That's how we do conservation, not punish ourselves. Hey, anyone who's even somewhat of a basic user fall in tier 2. So basically, I think the way we've constructed this is awful. I think there's a much better way to do it. Said it many, many times, and my opinion hasn't changed.
Okay, let's just go back in reverse. Peggy?
Well, I could have tape recorded Greg and then just played it back from my comments, but I didn't have a recorder. I tend to agree because I've heard complaints about our water rates since about 2008, when I was still driving kids around town and not involved in this. I did have neighbors walk over and give me copies of their bills, most of which I already had.
Can I back up for a second?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry to interrupt.
It's
but,
okay. Am I not loud enough?
No, you're loud enough. I
I'm
want to
using-
understand.
Yes.
You say you've heard complaints for many years about our water
Yes.
rates. Could you just expand on that? What were the complaints?
That the 1 year, thank you, it's a good question. I hate to be the historian. I don't mean to sound like I know everything. I don't. But in about 2008, the town went to the tiered structure. And prior to that, it was basically, here's a gallon, here's $5 a gallon, $2 a gallon, whatever. But people in my community thought, what? The rates went up fairly high at one point. And I don't know the year, you can't quote me on that, but I moved from a condo to a townhouse to a single family home. I've lived in all three in this town, Ocean, A1A, and Side Street. And it seems like they incrementally just blitzed up with every move.
So they were complaining that.
The rates
excuse me,
just astronomically went up for single family homes in my neighborhood. I can only speak to the neighbors.
So they
at
were
that time.
complaining that the rates are too high.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, a neighbor in a new home with not much landscaping, no leaks, a 2-year-old home, a couple and one-year-old baby who doesn't take showers yet, their bill is $800 a month.
Okay. Well, regardless of how we
I'm just
structure
saying
this,
that's what we hear.
got-
Right.
regardless how this gets structured,
Yes.
they're
Now-
going to complain again because everybody's going.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand. that.
Almost everybody.
Right. But, I also understand that a retired couple in a 2-bedroom condo should perhaps not be paying the same level as a single family home, no landscaping. I do think that some of the smaller condos might be overpaying in the current structure, but I can't say that for sure. I've seemed to have heard that. But I would be very much in favor of revisiting, if we have to have tiers, revisiting them to put the real wasteful persons in a higher level tier. These 15 homes, people who don't care, they run their sprinklers every day, they don't care about conservation. But what conservation is there for the condos? I don't know that we have anything for them. They don't have a conservation method. So I would like to be fair to everyone. If we can't do a per gallon cost for every single billed customer in town, then I would be much in favor of refashioning the tiers. I don't think, I know Rafaelis has worked on a number of different towns across the country. I looked them up. Flint, Michigan, California, Texas, North Carolina, Florida. We can't all be in the same sort of structure. And I think that we have to tweak our program for our town and try to be fair to everyone. So I would be in favor of revisiting the tiers, a much more favorable first level, and definitely one that takes the last and the highest users and puts them on notice that you're overusing. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Okay, I disagree, but I also want to point out that if you increase the levels, you're going to find that everyone in that bottom level is going to be paying more because you're going to have to charge more in order to get your base rates. So that you have fixed expenses. And in order to cover those fixed expenses, if you are not creating your different levels, you have to charge more at that first level than we are currently charging. I don't know that these tiers are necessarily wrong. You want to tweak them a little? Fine, tweak them a little, but I would not go to a 3-tier system. I would keep the 4-tier system. Among other things, if we've got 15 or 16 homes that are overusing, well, then they should pay for really overusing. We have to deal with the regulations from the South Florida Water Management District, and they are not going to agree to us having it flat.
Nobody is suggesting flat.
I mean, I don't know. Where would you like the first tier to end? You want it at 25,000 gallons? You want it at 30,000 gallons? I mean, there has to be an end someplace. So what would you like that tier to end, and what would you like the next tier to be? I don't have a problem with the highest tier being 60,000 gallons and more. That's a lot of water. And what they were saying is they are allocating 10,000 gallons a month for indoor use. And that's a lot. Because most of the other usage is outdoor use. So before I would agree to change these tiers, I'd like to know where you want to go with it. But I do believe that everyone pays based on usage. We have a flat rate that everyone pays, and then it's all based on usage. And I think the costs for usage should depend on where you fall with how many gallons that you use. You pay for what you use.
John?
So can I just ask again, just to refresh me? We were talking about moving $1 million from sewer. Or the project was going to be down now dramatically from what we originally thought, correct?
It's coming from operating, going over to,
Correct. You asked two questions in one.
Yeah.
So first question, we're taking $1 million from our general fund reserves and putting it over into the utility system to offset the increases over the forecast period. So we're going to take basically out of our general fund reserves, we're going to take $1 million over during this period, not all at once, but each year, bring it over into the utility system to, if you will, assist with this transition of debt. Secondly, we took a $4 million sewer project and brought it down to $1.5 million.
That's my, okay. So, however, all the debt will be moved over by 2026?
Yes. Yes.
And how much is that, would that be?
I would have to take a look. I don't know if the guys have the number or Matt has that number.
Approximately. I'm just trying to get a feel.
I mean, right now it's about $1.5 million for debt service obligations, about $1.5 million a year. And that's going to slowly come down. And then we have an issue that falls off in 23, and then it comes down to a smaller number carrying forward.
I was just trying to understand how much debt are we actually going to finally get rid of?
Based on current dollars, I believe that's 11.8 million is, I don't have that number right at my fingertips, but that's
Okay,
what we
but
have currently. That's our
Roughly
outstanding.
12 million.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So at the end of 2026, we will be done with debt.
no,
Then you have
no,
to add
no, we
additional
will
debt.
not be done with that.
No.
The debt we'll still have plenty of debt, but it'll be sitting over an enterprise.
over in the enterprise, plus whatever additional debt they would have to take on for improvements, major projects. whatever.
Hopefully we won't, but yes, if there is
Yeah.
additional need, yes.
Okay. So I agree with a tiered strategy. I'm actually, I don't have a problem with keeping it lower in tier 1 than even we have now, but making it higher in tier 3 so we can hit the real high users.
I think the suggestion is to make it higher, not lower.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that you could make it even higher by lowering it on the tier 1, if that can make up for it.
I
Follow
don't,
me?
I think they're suggesting the opposite.
I understand.
Oh, you're suggesting a
I'm suggesting
different
that-
suggestion, okay.
We hit them harder on the high-end users. I mean, I really do. Especially egregious use of the water means that they're not paying attention to the irrigation because they don't care. They can write the check and be done with it, okay? But there's got to be some price to that.
John, just for sake of clarity, I think you're saying the same thing I was saying, right?
Only
I
even
think
going,
he is.
Yeah, I think he
he's
is,
but-
backing into it.
and
Right,
going a
okay.
little further and saying that I'd even do it more,
Yep.
okay? The other
Bigger
thing
tier
is-
2, tier 3 than tier 1, tier 2.
Yes. And I would say, just to defend condos a bit here, I am worried that small condos are overpaying versus the large condos. But as was pointed out by the mayor, some of these large condos do have water-cooled air conditioners that eat up a lot of water. Well, it turns out that some of the mid-sized condos, Highland Beach Club at 200 units, maybe Coronado, they don't have air cooling, air conditioning, water-cooled air conditioners. So that is not relevant for at least the mid-size. But what is relevant is the irrigation. And some, or at least I know of some, that are using sensors. The problem with the sensors, of course, is that technology is not the greatest and they tend to fall apart, break over time, and it's costly to maintain it. Okay. The pool is number 2. But actually, number 1, flappers. I went through and talked with maintenance personnel and with our service management company. And I went to the company that First Service that manages, I don't know, 100 condos in Florida and all this. Flappers are the killer. The flappers in the toilets are usually, almost always, an owner responsibility. And when they leak, either they're not there, so they don't pick up on it, or even if they are there, they don't hear it, they don't care, they don't do anything. And yet it's a $2-3 item. So one of the actions as a result of all of this conversation, I'll just pass on, and for viewers, whoever might be, have a discussion with the condo unit. Maybe what we have is a policy that I know we're going to pursue as a member of the board, a project to replace all of flappers. Boom, all of them. Because whatever the cost for that would be, maybe $1,000, $2,000, the savings in the money, especially now with these rates, is going to be significant. So there's a payback. And I think in any of this, we need to show payback. It's one thing that it's hard for Connor to see, what's my payback on all of
It's
this?
part of an education program.
Yes,
Sure.
exactly. So in the education program, a payback analysis or something that shows why conservation is good, but why financially it is to their advantage. So that we don't come out looking like, oh, see, this new council comes together and bang, they're going to hit us with a price increase. Now, my last point is the mill rate. Part of this is that we were going to, lower the mill rate, offsetting some of this cost.
Yes,
And when we educate and we explain all of this, we need to show that there's substance to that, and not just a political promise.
right, right.
Okay,
Okay,
that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
my turn. Okay. This whole discussion about fixed versus variable costs, again, throw it out the window, totally meaningless in this environment, in this project. And I went through it all last time. I don't know that it'd be redundant if I go through it again, so I'll move on. It just makes no sense to even delve into it here. The discussion of expanding the first level from 19 gallons to 25 gallons or 30 gallons, I sign on to that idea. I have no problem with it. I think it's a good idea. One might have to increase the 248 to a slightly higher number. We would have to accelerate the 431 to a higher number et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's a valid idea. I think we should ask Robert to take a look at that, see where it would fall. One, I think it makes sense. Two, I think it's a better sell to our population. I like the idea. So I think we ought to take a look at that. We know what our bogey is. We know what number we have to bring in from a revenue standpoint. This might be a better way to get there. And I like it. I like it a lot. The issue, just to bring people up to date that don't know, of what happens in many of the, I'm going to call them larger condos based on the definition from the examples that have been provided. Many of the condos have these huge water tanks on their roofs, and the air conditioning units that air condition each of the individual apartments are actually air handlers. And the water flows, and that water gets recycled, but a lot of it gets used up, part through evaporation, and part just gets used up through the cooling system. And it could be as much as a third of the water that's used each month could go through that system. And I know Toscana has that system. 3 of the buildings in our development have it. I'm at Dalton Place. Braemar Isle has the same system. Braemar's a big building, 224 units. I'm 122 units. So I didn't do a survey of how many of the units throughout our town have it, but many of them do, the larger buildings. There are some things that can be done to help alleviate some of that, but these are the air conditioning systems that service all the resident hallways and all the individual resident apartments. And that's one of the reasons why during the summers, when a good 50% of the population is gone, and in some places maybe even as much as a third, you see that there is no significant reduction in water usage. And in fact, sometimes water usage is even more in the summer months, because when people are gone from their apartments, you still have to air condition them. Now they move them up to maybe 78 degrees, but you're still moving everything through and air conditioning those units. So just a little bit of education for everybody. Okay. And then one of the reasons why, when we look at the charts that Robert shows us, why these condos are using so much of the water, and why, when you look at that versus single family, the usage is so much higher in terms of what the cost is. Got to keep them air conditioned. Okay. So I don't know that I need to summarize any more than that.
I've got really good marching orders. If you're all general direction, then we're going to work on tiers at this point with
Oh, yeah.
the guidance we discussed.
Quick sign, we're into tiers. I think we're all signed on to, we're really close
Okay.
to getting
Good.
this thing done.
All right.
We just need to take a look at expanding the first level. I don't know what the number is. Probably we should look at what, Greg, 25,000 maybe? Maybe we should look at maybe 28,000?
Marshall, you looked at my bill, and I'm a miserly user, as we've talked about in the past, including with landscape, everything. What was I?
So you're the average bill you see on the
Okay.
spreadsheet, just to let
So
you know.
what is that?
So-
No, that's good to know.
So you're the average, the stereo, I don't want to say stereotypical, but your typical average user, family of 4,
And 2 dogs.
2 dogs.
We learned that.
pool, yard, irrigation, boat. I mean, it's what we're going to see on the single family side.
And where was it? I'm sorry, I forgot.
You're about 25,000 per month. That takes you to 50. So what I'm thinking at is I have good marching orders. I've got good notes as to what I think we can do. We're going to push the envelope with South Florida a little bit. They'll learn to deal with it.
I'll tell you, 50 is a good round number on a bi-monthly. So 25 a month, I mean,
But we
that's
may
a very
need to-
good, solid number to deal with.
And I think that's kind of where my target is, but we may have to do and I'll just, since my microphone is actually Robert and Mark, so they don't get to talk right now. we may have to do a short step. What I mean by that is think of what the multifamily has been under it, where you have, because they're going to look at, South Florida is going to look more at your blocks from my conversations with their folks over. It. So we may need to not go to 50. We may have to go to say 30, 35 and tell them that's just what we're going to do. We're a closed system. The next block may be the group where most of the average is, but it doesn't jump up quite as quickly as it currently shows in that second block. And then the third tier is really going to be heavier to make up the gap. So I call it a short step,
Wait a minute.
if you will, between the tiers.
I'm not quite following you. Would you walk me through that again?
I got to take the mask off. I guess
Yeah.
I can't talk through a mask. So loosely, if we were to do a 3-step right now, and this is, I'll have to work I'll work closely with Robert, Mark, and Matt, and we'll get the numbers to work the appropriate way. But if you were to do a 0 to 35, 35 to 70, and then anything over 70. So say it's $3 for the first 1,000-gallon tier rate structure. The next one, they may come up and say, oh, it needs to be $4.85. Well, we make it $3.92. It's a shorter step, but that third tier, it's heavy, where you're going to bring it in a little bit more. Once you're over
Okay.
that number,
I got you.
you're gonna make up the difference on that short
Okay,
step.
I'll leave it to you and Robert.
Yeah, but again,
You
I think
comfortable with that?
what Evelyn said is true. I think that first tier is going to come up from what you're looking at now to kind of make some of that work. So my second question, I see your finger up, Rob. Hold on a sec. Again, I've had a lot of conversations with
And
South
you
Florida
may
Water
have to
Management.
raise the ante on the first tier to make the numbers work.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So we'll have to get ourselves in there. We may need to show a 4-step. I don't know, to see how the numbers work. I don't think so. I think we could do a 3. I've talked a lot with South Florida. I think we can push our envelope a little bit. So, and I like it with enticing them with the conservation program. There is this mandatory rule that it's going to be in our water supply plan that they're requiring us to put into our comprehensive plan. So I believe we could get some flexibility if we're willing to kind of come along with some of that conservation. So I think we're okay. I think we got really good direction.
I'm good with that. You good with that?
So I think we're getting closer. So my last question is procedural. Would you, it's probably going to take us probably a couple weeks to do it. And since we're looking at an April 1 rollout, I don't want to say we have a lot of time. We have a little bit of time. We work this out, bring it back to the commission before we roll it out to the FAB. So the FAB is supposed to meet on the 19th. There's no way I'll talk with them. I don't know if we can get it by the 17th and squeeze that time frame. So we may need to potentially do this in December. So we're going to put about a 3-week lag time on it, depending on my conversations with Robert and Mark and their workload on their other customers and clients. So, but we'll still be good that we have the deadlines that we have to meet the state statute by putting it on the bill 2 months prior. We still can meet all of those timelines comfortably, hit the proposal on April 1 is that official rollout date. So if everyone's comfortable with that, I'll reschedule the FAB to be the follow-up to your review of the tiers.
Good.
Good?
Okay,
Okay.
Peggy's got one thing.
That's just to add in, at last count, I believe more than half of the single-family homes were already in a second tier and then a third. So that seemed like a high percentage. And then secondly, as Evelyn and John brought up, if we could undergo an education, a mailer with, here's how you conserve landscape, the meters.
Already on the plan.
Okay, that would
absolutely.
be very important. And
Now,
then the
The
plumbing and
interesting
leaks.
thing, though,
Yes,
as
sir.
so many of the single-family homes are into the second tier, it's going to be difficult working the financial model to still hit the total revenue that's required. So that's why,
And to
I
make it
hope it'll work, but we may have to increase the cost
yeah, the cost
on the first tier
to
to
understand.
hit it. So,
But I would also like to make sure the smaller condos and townhomes are correctly identified and tiered.
oh, absolutely. But what happens is, just remember, as you push here, it's going to come out here.
I understand.
So
We'll-
everybody
we'll-
is not going to get satisfied.
No, I understand that.
So at the last minute, you're going to come up with, well, these people are getting hurt.
I understand.
Yes, they're gonna.
We'll fix the flappers. And the boat dock leaks.
They might be on Tranquility Drive. I don't know.
Could be. We'll see.
Okay.
So
All right,
that's,
are
I
we-
have great direction. I will reach out to Robert and Mark. Wave your hands if you can hear me, Robert and Mark, that I'll be reaching out to you. Yep, got it. And we'll reach out and start working on this and try to find something that works.
Sounds good. Everybody satisfied? End of discussion? Done. Thank you. Okay, next, 335. This is on page 44. Need to approve and authorize town manager to execute the one-year renewal letter of agreement for the cleaning systems for janitorial services here in the town hall. Anybody have any questions about it? I'll turn it over to Marshall for discussion.
Are
Yeah,
we
it's a-
happy with their services?
Yes, Pat says they're great and comparative analysis, they're
And
good.
so, and
So
the original contract provides for 2 one-year
wait,
increments, so then, okay, let's do it.
you've been sitting here, Pat. You might as well get a chance to speak at a microphone.
Yes, there are 2 one-year increments that we can go with, which I think is with the same pricing as well.
No questions? Need a motion? Peggy, you making the motion?
Sure, why not? I don't usually make them, but I will.
Okay.
I make the motion to accept, oops, I need the name of the,
It's 11A.
what is the name of the company? I'm off my agenda here. Cleanings, I make the motion to accept the one-year contract extension for CSI.
I second.
Thank
All in
you.
favor, just say aye.
Aye.
I'll
Aye.
get back on here.
Okay, moving on to B, approve and authorize town manager to execute the one-year renewal letter of agreement with Model Row, Inc. for landscaping services for the town hall complex and other town-owned properties. Turn that over to,
Yes, same thing as with the cleaning system. We've had them for 3 years. We have some one-year extensions if we're happy with them. And they've been our landscapers for several years. They're a smaller company and they snapped to it when I asked them to. So I'm very happy with them.
any questions?
Question. Just in the spirit of, a lot of citizens who are concerned about us always looking for other bids,
Mhm.
at least 3 bids. Do you feel on something like this, we know them well, you're happy with the service, the prices, that you don't need to go to a bid?
Correct. I mean, we can look at that 2 years down the road or after, maybe even after next year. But we want to get at least the 1 years in now, and then we'll look at the future and see if we need to go out and look at other prices.
Very good.
I'm assuming that you put it out to bid before the
Original, yes,
first one,
yes,
so
yep.
this is just
Yes,
a renewal.
Yeah, both of them were due at the same date, and that's why they're up again as well.
Got it.
Any other questions?
So you want a motion,
Please.
Mayor? That we approve the, what is the, hold on a second.
Model Row Inc.
Contractual services provided by
Model.
Model Row, Inc.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So passes. Okay, now we move on to the construction work hours. This is on page 77 and 78.
You have one.
One, and we have one before
Yeah,
that.
you
Yep.
have the
The
Jerry Beach
renourishment.
Renourishment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Project.
Sorry, Beach Renourishment Project. There is a memo that Marshall has prepared for us. It's in our packet for us to review. Are we comfortable with it? Do we want any additions or deletions to it? Do we want to
I have
change?
one point. You say Highland Beach is writing to express our concerns about the aforementioned project that seeks to renourish its beaches. Well, with the Highland Beach and then the its beaches, I think that can be misconstrued to meaning that Highland Beach is renourishing their beaches, which we're not. So maybe just spell out Delray Beach instead of saying it's.
Sure. Yes.
Question or?
Yeah, sure.
I wonder, the intent with this letter is to let them know that we're concerned. Is that good enough? Do we want to be a little more aggressive in this and say, look, we understand what you're trying to do and we find it to be a real problem for us? Because again, I don't know how much attention we'll get given all of their scandals going on, and that, we need it, instead of, sending a flyer, maybe a shot across the bow. I would ask, would it make more sense, given the situation with Delray, given where we are right now, that they might take this letter and say, okay, next.
The letter doesn't go to Delray. It goes to the Army Corps of Engineers.
But okay.
So Delray
I was
doesn't-
thinking Delray, but in the body of the letter, that when this, we're gonna send a copy of this to Delray, no?
We could. They'll get a copy.
They'll get a copy.
Yeah, they should get a copy. In which case, all I'm saying is that we should be a little more aggressive in this statement to the Corps with a copy that goes to Delray that says, we're not happy with this. And we're not, we're asking them to take this a more serious stance. That's all I'm saying. And that could be one or two sentences. I mean, I'm not trying to complicate it again. I'm all about simplicity, but I think you gotta, say, wait a minute, this is serious. We don't like it. It's not just a letter of concern. That's kind of like too weak for me. That's me.
That's why we have it here, because I didn't know what you guys want. I could, tell them that we're gonna cease and desist and our lawyers will be calling you. I mean, we could get to any level of aggression. I don't know how effective we will on a public notice on a project that's pre-authorized on 73, which it seems odd to me that you get that long of an authorization. But, if you want to be more aggressive, I can tighten it up a bit, put a little more teeth to it, saying we would like you to no longer dredge off our shores rather than expressing our concerns that you are.
I'm just saying it'll get lost in the noise, in my opinion, okay?
It will.
And at the same time,
I agree with your opinion. Let's reverse roles here. We're doing this project. Okay, this
Yep.
is a Highland Beach project.
Right.
We got approved many years ago. We've invested all the time and money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're going to get a letter from Delray telling us not to do it. What would we do?
but if we were encroaching on their side,
No,
going
we're-
across their
We're,
border.
we're doing it. This is us. Now, and we've gone through everything Delray has gone through to do it.
Yep.
And now a letter comes.
Yep.
What would we do with it?
And so the question really comes, is it okay? Would it be a problem to comply? Would it really be a problem for Delray to say, we don't need that much of their beach frontage. So we'll let it go. Okay, we'll comply.
Would you?
I think I would if we were going into, if we were going into Delray, I gotta believe that, well, Boca certainly would say not only no, but they would go to not the shot across the bow, but a broadside, lawyers and whatnot. But yeah, I think once you infringe upon the boundary lines of the town.
Okay, then maybe
It's a
what we
problem.
should do is copy the mayor and the commission.
Delray.
Absolutely.
Mayor Hillman,
Yes.
if I could add that
Please.
I did a little research. I know I drive you guys crazy with my research sometimes, but there was a case where Miami-Dade County municipality, I think it was North Miami, had contracted, including DEP and the Army Corps, to remove sand off the shores of Martin County. And Martin County objected and they backed down and they trucked it in from Central Florida instead. So there is a precedent case There are two other cases, one in the Sarasota area and one the the Port of Miami, both pending sand dredging and damage to reefs. So I'm saying there are cases there. I don't know if it will help us, but we should know that.
Okay, let's copy the mayor and the commissioner.
Peggy, I think I
Yes, ma'am.
heard that
Okay,
Sarasota
go.
case was not going well for the
Oh,
people who
have
were
you?
complaining.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we have the Martin County, which is our coast. So it's just, I understand you might be more updated. That's why we have an attorney on the
Okay,
commission.
Okay, are we as a commission comfortable with that?
Yes, sir. One more
Sure.
thing. I
Okay.
think DEP is involved too, so.
I'm sure
could we-
they are.
Could we copy them? And also our new senator will be Tina Polsky.
I've got Tina down,
Polsky.
yeah.
Okay. Our senator-elect, Tina Polsky, Polsky. Interestingly, I had met her last
Okay,
spring.
do we
pretty
want
good.
to copy Coastal Star? John?
I don't see why not.
Okay,
Again, I come back, if we wouldn't do it, then we shouldn't even send the letter. Right? And the whole intent is to get them to help us out.
okay, send Rich a copy also. We don't want to be half pregnant. Let's,
That's the good point.
anything else on that subject? Are we done?
I'm done.
Okay, move on. Construction work hours. Does anybody need a break? We're good to continue? Okay, in your packet is a chart on construction work hours in neighboring towns. Now, Kevin, are you Kevin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I know you're here for remarks. I'm going to call you up in a second, okay? Have you have a copy of this chart? Okay, can we get a copy for Kevin? Now, I'm sure everybody has digested this chart, so I'm not planning on going through each town, what each thing says, et cetera, but the basic summary of it is all neighboring towns up and down the beach have construction hours ranging from 7 a.m., but they all end at 6 o'clock or later. They all have construction on Saturdays. There are adjustments in basically Palm Beach during the summer hours, during the summertime, where their Saturday ends like at 5. Ocean Ridge ends Saturday at 1 during the summer. Some towns go like to 8 o'clock at night, et cetera, but we are unique in that we do not have Saturdays and we end construction at 5. When the changes were made some year and a half or 2 years ago, when we backed our hours down to 5 o'clock and eliminated Saturdays, we basically took 25% out of the work week, going from a 60-hour work week down to a 45-hour work week. The reason that I've chosen to put this on the agenda is because I get repeated phone calls from people in the town about this lack of Saturday and this having to stop work at 5 o'clock. And the phone calls have been increasing at an accelerated rate. So I said, okay, enough. I got to put it on the agenda and we need to talk about it. Now, a couple of things. This is not a black and white subject, meaning work or no work, because there are different kinds of work. For example, if we chose to allow work again on a Saturday, that doesn't have to be all work. That could be only inside work. Or it could be inside and outside work, but no noise-making work, like cutting of tile or laying of concrete, things like that. So we could qualify the kind of work. It could be work on Saturdays with specific hours. There could also be carve-outs. Kevin, I'm assuming that you are from Bellito.
I'm at 4200 South Ocean Boulevard, living in Bellito right now.
Okay. Only reason I said that was I've gotten phone calls and emails from people in Bellito, so forgive me. Many people in Bellito are concerned about Saturday work. There could be specifics in specific communities, for example. Condominiums and deeded HOAs can make their own rules. The three of us live in a condo.
They do.
Pardon me? Oh. Your condominium can say no work on Saturdays. What condos and HOAs can do is make more stringent rules, but they cannot make less stringent rules. So for example, right now, the rules in our town are no work on Saturdays. My condo can't say, well, you can work in my condo on Saturday. No, you can't do that. So that's why I'm just saying this isn't a black and white subject. Okay? All right, with that knowledge, please address the group.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today. My name is Kevin Orms. I'm currently not living in where I'm doing the project at 4200 South Ocean Boulevard. I'm living in Bellito, renting a home there. I think the biggest issue that is bothering the people that are making these phone calls is more than just the hours. When the general contractors hire their subs, the subs try and do as much work as they can. And when you limit the amount of time that they can work in Highland Beach, they don't come and work in Highland Beach. And so what happens to them is they, in some cases, can't get the best people that they want. They go to other towns where they can work 6 days a week. So what's happening is, and you try to avoid it the best you can, you may not be getting the best quality worker coming in to your project. And the other thing is we're adding 25% to the project itself. So it would be much better if we could start a project, finish it sooner. Therefore, the neighbors and everything else is happier. And currently right now, I'm renting a home and I'd like to get out of that home as quick as I could and get back into the home that I'm having constructed. And in talking to the general contractors, I think that's the biggest issue. The other problem is the people that I tried to get to do my project, when I told them where I lived, they said they weren't interested, that they didn't want to do business in Highland Beach. Now, was it because of this lack of 6-day work weeks or the restrictions that we place? You know, I got a booklet when we started our project, and we're you know, the quality of life in Highland Beach is what the planning board and what the commission is most interested in. And that's greatly appreciated. And I agree with you. You know, I think there are certain types of work that can be done without a noise level. You know, lay around your pool on a Saturday. How much noise is out there by the landscapers? I'll guarantee it's a lot more than a lot of these construction jobs that are going on, because you're going to have hurricane windows in your units. You're not going to hear anything if they're inside doing work, plumbing work or painting or that. But lay outside by your pool on a Saturday, and I know some people want to eliminate yard work on Saturdays, which I'm not for, but those are the two things that I'm looking at. One is we're losing 25% of our work that the people can do. It's costing us, in some cases, good people. In some cases, it's costing us general contractors that don't want to come to our town to do work. So those are the issues that I really look at from my perspective. I don't think that I'm being selfish in that regard, but I think it's something that I'm glad that the commission is looking at. Because I think when you just drive right down here and you're going into Delray, which I know is not a popular town right now, but they're in there working on Saturdays. That doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. But I would really appreciate the opportunity for you to look at it and give it some consideration. I don't know if I'm,
Anybody have any
have a
questions?
question or,
Any questions? John?
I have a question. Couple
Yes.
questions. For most of the condos, this is not a problem because they can make their decisions as we've talked about. I mean, they've been making their decisions even during COVID, limiting not only hours of visitation, guests, service personnel, maids, contractors, when they can come in, when they can leave, what hours, all of that's done by the condo. So I see this as a single family neighborhood issue. Because I think that's where most of the input has been coming, not only from Bellito, but from a single family home that, they work all week and then they got to listen to this nonsense on Saturday. Would there be a problem, do you think, if we limited heavy construction, equipment, tractors, cranes, big trucks, that sort of thing? Would that be so restrictive that even would be a problem for getting these contractors to do work in Highland Beach?
off the top of my head, I would say no. I don't think, in the people that are doing the project that I'm involved in now, they fully understand. You wouldn't want them driving pylons, on a Saturday, or you wouldn't want them bringing in, like we just poured 6 trucks of concrete. You don't want to hear that all day long on a Saturday. I don't think that you're going to be put in a position that at least they know once they get that heavy equipment out of their project, that they can go from there. They can stucco the outside of a building, they can paint the inside of the building, they can do electrical work, they can do plumbing work. Those are the things that are time consuming. You watch these buildings go up on the outside, they go up quick, but then the real detail work starts on the inside. And I think that's what drives them, and more importantly, right now, the problem that we're facing is with all the restrictions and the costs that have gone up because of COVID, being able to get your appliances, now you have so much lead time, and, the quicker we can get the inside done, the quicker they can get your kitchens installed and all of the other things. But the outside restrictions, I would say that would not be a problem. And I know it wasn't a problem, because I talked to people about it that are having projects, and I don't think that they feel that that would be a deal breaker at all.
So, and a lot of that heavy stuff, like anything else, these projects, all the work goes into the foundation and getting everything laid out. But once you get that in, then it goes up real quick.
It does.
But you can schedule this, or the contractors can schedule this such that it doesn't have to be on a Saturday, and then they can schedule the rest of that inside or quiet work or, reasonable work on Saturdays.
They're doing that.
And not discourage them, from doing the work. By the way, the town loses money in this too. We can't collect taxes on houses that are not done, right?
That's right.
So there's an impact there. On the other hand, I feel badly for those residents in Bellito in particular who come Saturday morning, they just want to sleep without having all this noise going on. So I think there is a way to kind of balance this a bit.
Well, you can adjust your Saturday hours.
Sure.
If
And so what would be the earliest you would want on a Saturday that wouldn't discourage the contractors?
I would say 9 o'clock. 8 o'clock to me is pretty early.
Yeah, it is to me too.
But that's just a personal opinion. I'm an
Yeah,
early
yeah.
riser.
Yeah.
So, but still, I think that, the people that want to get up and do their Saturday thing, I think if you could limit it to 9 o'clock and I wouldn't go, personally, I wouldn't go past 5 o'clock. I don't think that, especially with daylight savings now, they're going to be, unless they're inside, there's no.
So a
daylight.
9 to 5 scheduled kind of program, light construction would be okay. And I think it wouldn't have a noise that would impact, those residents trying to catch up. Because it would also, blowers and lawnmowers make a heck of a lot of noise, no question about it. And generators that have to run, to every so often to do their dry runs. They make a lot of noise. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate
John.
your input.
I have your answers from multiple general contractors when I speak, so I can answer those questions for you.
Very good.
Hopefully I was on their side.
Well, I was collecting input directly from them.
All right. Thank you for your time. I
Thank you for
appreciate it.
coming. in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
I agree with him. I think that we do our residents a disservice by making them spend more money for their construction projects than is needed. That, you know, if we expanded our hours during the week till 6 o'clock as opposed to 5, it brings us more in line with everyone else. And light construction from 9 to 5 on Saturday. At least we add back some of the hours.
Well, that's basically that's what Palm Beach has at the bottom of this chart.
Mayor,
Yes.
we do have one more resident on the line via Zoom. That's Mady Weiner.
Okay, great.
Okay.
More in line with everyone else. And light construction from 9 to 5 on Saturday. At least we add back some of the hours.
Well, that's basically that's what Palm Beach has at the bottom of this
Help me
chart.
start my video. I
Mayor,
have to appear.
Yes.
I can hear you. It says what? Okay. Come over here. You're in.
Hello?
Hi. Are we up? Hi, Hello, greetings, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Mady Weiner. I'm from 4409 Intracoastal Drive in Bellito, Isle. And before I refute the comments that were made, I just want to have I'm going to read what I have written in my notes because I think there are a few things that you're all missing about the residents here. I'm here to add comments on this agenda item. Last time we addressed this matter, we had nearly 50 legal petitions signed by the residents of Highland Beach supporting a ban on Saturday construction hours. This law was put into effect by you, the town. You listened to the residents and taxpayers of this town who urged for a weekend free of construction, free of drilling and jackhammering, hammers banging and power saws whirling with dust flying into the construction sites, into our homes and our yards and on our property. You listened to our pleas to ban construction on Saturday so that our narrow streets would be free of double parked cars and vans, clogging them and blocking our path as we tried to ride our bicycles, walk to the beach, or play catch with our children or grandchildren in our streets. They already have a nearly 60-hour work week, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. You can tell me that's not enough time for contractors and homeowner repair services to get their work done in their homes and condos? Who are we trying to serve here? The contractors and the builders of the town or the homeowners? Is it really worth these extra few hours to infringe on the residents of our weekend peace and enjoyment to serve the personal interests of these builders? To add a few more hours to move a project along? How is that costing them more money in the end? Also, to ban Saturday, I have also researched how other coastal towns ban Saturday work and noted the allowance within limited hours of quiet work on Saturdays with a ban on power tools and equipment. This will not work in the town of Highland Beach, but specifically in Bellito, Isle. Limited quiet work is not a solution. Why? Because we barely have a code enforcement during the week when we see infractions. We barely have follow-up on after-hour complaints during the week. Why is the weekend going to be any different? Who will answer and respond to our calls on the weekend if we see violations? We already have work sites that go beyond the work hours during the week. Even with the rules of construction in effect, we have some workers who stay later than the hours of construction and continue their work inside the sites with the thought that no one will see or hear them. We have construction workers who stay beyond the hours to fish off our docks or they park their cars to walk to the beach. And yes, I've witnessed this. I've witnessed when their supervisors leave and how they all stay on. The majority of you live in a gated community where you have dedicated parking spots for these trucks, so it wouldn't affect you. You have security details at your guard gates to verify the identity of these workers and to keep you safe. 2 of you on the commission live on ungated streets and have children and more than 1 car. Do you honestly expect these workers to park on your driveway as you will go about your busy Saturday with your family? No, these vans and trucks will be on our streets. How will you discern that they are working at and aren't sneaking into our ungated streets to park and walk to the beach? And yes, despite the fact that we have a gated entry to our beach, they do manage to gain access. You listen to us as we urge for peace and enjoyment of our weekends at home. Now more than ever during the pandemic, more of us are spending time at home with our families due to this. You were discussing to rescind or amend the law the residents of our town worked so hard to advocate for peace and enjoyment of our homes. We already voted on this a year or so ago. Why are we revisiting it again? And I'm sorry. I would love to see a call log of Bellito residents because the majority do not. I also think you need to think about you were all appointed and elected to serve us. How are you here to represent the residents of our town if you are serving the builders and the contractors and not thinking about us as residents? What is the incentive here? Thank you.
Well, thank you for calling in and thank you for giving us your thoughts.
Mhm. And also 9 to 5 on a Saturday, if you are considering these limited hours, I'm sorry, but 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, even some people have dinner earlier on the weekend. I'm sorry, 5 o'clock is beyond, that's a week hour. And it may be in other towns, but it shouldn't be here in Bellito if that's another thing that you are considering, to allow inside work, quiet, no power tools. But I think the majority of the homeowners do not want this. I think you need to take a survey, but we have already petitioned, you have the legal petitions, and I would love to see the call log from Bellito residents.
Were you watching the entire meeting here? Did you
Yes.
watch the beginning of it?
Yes. Oh, the beginning of the meeting, no. I was only invited on when we brought up, when Kevin spoke and when you had, I don't know who that was the first speaker speaking and saying that somebody spoke and said, you know, that he doesn't want to be selfish here, but you are being selfish. You're self-serving your own project that you want these hours. And contractors to come in, I'm sorry, they're a dime a dozen these days. People are looking for work. Move on to the next that does want to work here. There aren't any contractors that I know of that would not want to work here and not want to work, period, in this day and age.
So you didn't hear the beginning of our discussion on this subject, where we can carve out specific issues for specific communities.
Okay, but I think you have to keep in mind the homeowners versus the condo owners. The condo owners have private parking and dedicated spaces for these trucks. We don't. Trucks will clog our
recognize
streets
that.
on the weekend. They will
Okay.
cause roadblocks. Our children can't play in the streets. The
Okay, I
trucks
don't
will
want
be
to sit
working.
here and I don't want to sit here and debate this with you, but I do want you to understand that this commission has to represent the entire town,
I understand,
not just one community. And right now, we have.
right? And they also have to represent, I think their primary goal is to
Can I
represent
finish?
the homeowners and not the builder.
I listened to your presentations and I didn't interrupt you. So can you listen to me without interrupting, please?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So the commission has to represent the entire town, not just Bellito. In doing that, right now we have rules and regulations for construction that services the needs of Bellito, but it does not service the needs of the entire town. So what we have to do is come up with something that works for everybody in the town, not just one development. And that's what we're trying to do, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for calling in and thank you for being part of this.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay,
Can I ask Peggy and Greg, could You have an HOA for Bellito?
They do, but
It's
it's not a
optional.
deeded
There's
legal
no
one.
enforcement of it. So no, it's
Yeah.
not. an issue.
So, because I was going to ask
All it
if
gets you
if
is
they
detail.
could
I've been there.
have their own restrictions, much like other
Can't do it.
places
I
do.
thought they could,
Not an option.
and unfortunately. they
Okay,
cannot.
well,
Yeah.
that would have been,
Yeah, I was there already. Great minds. Move it over to you, Beck. Greg, okay, you can wait. Go ahead.
I can have, duke it out. Just kidding. Lot to say on this subject. So full transparency, I actually wrote the commission a letter on this back in July 2018, as did Alan Goldstein. I spoke in front of the commission.
So that's when this came into effect.
Yeah, that's when it first came about. Marshall has a copy of my letter. I gave it to him and said, feel free to circulate it to the rest of the commissioners if you'd like. No problem with that. Same comments that were made here. By cutting down the 1 hour on the weekdays and then getting rid of Saturdays, you cut down by 25%, 13 weeks out of a year. So that means an 18-month project becomes a 24-month project. So the other problem with not having Saturdays is for homeowners who are getting, they want some input on their jobs, they've got to constantly take days off if the work's only being done during the weekdays and not the weekends. So that's part of it. One of the things I've heard, and I mentioned this back in my letter, Saturdays, that's the time for kids on the street. It's a bit of hooey on that one. The kids are on the street after school on the weekdays and Sundays. Saturday's the lightest day for kids on the street because they all have their sports teams. So that's that part of it. I'm very much for Saturday construction, but I'm also very open to modified Saturday construction. And I spent a lot of time talking to residents. It's funny, Mayor, when you put this on, and I had no idea you were going to put it on, I got a lot of incoming calls from residents. I asked them not to come today. I asked them not to write anything. I said, let's talk about it first and let's see where it goes. But pretty close to 20 residents reached out to me in support of this. And a lot of them live in Bellito. Obviously myself.
In support of what?
Of Saturday construction, bringing back Saturday construction and actually extending the work week back to 6 p.m. and actually reducing the holiday schedule. Myself, the Mooser Stewart residents at 4303 Intercoastal, Matey's next door neighbor. Alan Goldstein, 4408 Intercoastal. The Schneids on Tranquility. Jeff Kleinman, who actually has 4 properties. He's paying 4 sets of taxes. He's on Intercoastal, Bellito Drive, and on South Ocean. Eric Bernier at 4205 Intercoastal. Eric Birch, 4425 Tranquility. Roger Brown has spoken about this in the past. He has 2 properties on Tranquility. These are all Bellito residents. Steve Tebon, who I think may have written some of us, he's got 2 properties on 4513 South Ocean. Obviously, Kevin Orms, he had mentioned to me on the street. There's 3 residences at the north end of town that are either in renovations. One of them is a very large build that's going on. They've spoken wishing to have more construction time. I used to live in Ocean Place Estates. Multiple of my old neighbors said that they would prefer to have some sort of availability. They have an HOA, so they can regulate it more if they want. This is without trying to poll people. This is just people saying, listen, it's gotten to be, we swung the pendulum too far the other way. So it might be balanced in Bellito. It might be half the people want it and half the people don't, but it's not at all that no one in Bellito wants it. Full stop. I've seen a lot of everything Mr. Orms stated, I agree with. I've heard the same sorts of things. Here's how it works in the construction. So when you're building a house, you bring in a sub and you try to get that sub to get all their work done during that week. And then the next sub comes in the following Monday.
Right.
So what happens, and Saturday tends up to be more of a cleanup day, a finishing of the things that didn't quite make it. The inspector said, hey, this fails, but if you change this, I'll pass you. That's the stuff that gets done on Saturday. Fresh concrete doesn't get poured on Saturday. It's the finishing day. The problem is when you remove Saturday, you can't bring the next sub in on Monday. Now you blow a week because the previous week's sub comes in uses Monday maybe to finish the work they could have done on Saturday, and then the next sub comes in the following Monday. That's how they work. They start their new jobs on Monday. So that's the reason why these jobs take so much longer, is because you're not giving them that little gap day that they need. I've talked to a lot of contractors about this. They don't need the heavy machinery on the weekend. They don't need backhoes. They don't need bulldozers. They don't need concrete trucks. They don't need cranes. None of that is a requirement for them on Saturday to be happy to work in Highland Beach. And actually, Mr. Orms is right. And it's not the spec builders. These are contractors that build custom homes for residents. They don't build a home unless a resident hired them. A lot of the good ones do not want to work in Highland Beach anymore because we've made it so onerous. And the reason is they charge roughly a flat fee. So when you're taking a job that's 18 months and you're making out to 24 months or more, they can't charge that much bigger of a flat fee to make it worthwhile. So they just pass on the job. It's a lot easier not to do it. So if you had that Saturday back, and even if it was 9 to 4, 10 to 4 maybe, who knows? And you had the 6 p.m. on weekdays again, that's solving a lot of the contractor problems, because then they can start bringing their subs in every Monday and be on the same schedule as they are with every other house. We don't have the problem of double parked cars anymore that Mrs. Weiner mentioned. We changed our parking rules. It's being enforced. I live by a lot of these construction jobs that are going on in Bellito. They're always parked right on the property. And if they're not, the code enforcement guy gets them and makes their life pretty miserable. So that's a non-event. So this is not being requested by the builders. This is being requested by the residents, by the homeowners, by the people who are going to be paying the taxes. So I understand that Mrs. Weiner was saying we're acquiescing to the builders if we do this. No, we're acquiescing to some of the homeowners. Contractors, they're more busy now than ever. Look at Home Depot, Lowe's, Wayfair, all of those stocks, they've gone through the roof. Why? They're selling more product now than ever. Nobody's traveling. Nobody's going to do all sorts of other things. They're improving their homes. You want a good job, become a contractor. I mean, you will have more work than you know what to do with. Carving out Bellito from the town is not an option. It doesn't make sense, because then we can reduce that to the absurd. Let's carve out Bellito Drive, where we're all fine with construction, versus Tranquility versus Intercoastal. Doesn't make sense. Do something that's for the town. It also is hard to do an ordinance where you say you can't cut tile, because I, as a homeowner, if I'm renovating my own bathroom on a Saturday, I can cut tile in the yard. But you're saying the contractor next door can't. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
True. Good point.
So none of those are real options. This is hard. The pendulum was too far to the left. It swung way too far to the right. I think we do need to bring it back somehow. I'm not saying we have to bring it back to all construction, everything, anytime, all goes. But I really do think we do need to bring it back. You know, if it was me voting alone, I'd bring back all construction, but I also recognize that that's not the right thing for all residents. I think the right thing for all residents, where everybody's a little bit unhappy, is bring back Saturday. Make it abridged hours, like 9 to 4. Bring back weekdays till 6. By the way, the last hour of the weekday, they're usually just doing cleanup. They're not doing heavy work in that last hour. And make it so Saturdays have no heavy machinery at all. No tractors outside, no backhoes, nothing like that. A lot of the construction work is, a lot of the time actually takes once the house has been closed up. Once you put the windows and doors in and everything, you got a sheetrock and you got paint, and you know, all the finishing work is a real,
It's all quiet
It's tedious.
interior work.
let people do it.
Sheetrock is not quiet work, because you hear that nail gun.
Right.
So don't tell me that.
But if you have the house air conditioned at that point, you can shut, I mean, they don't also have every window open as they're doing it. So,
We
My-
could define what can be done.
right, exactly. But I do think we need to swing it back at some point. And those are my comments.
Peggy, the ball's in your court.
Well, if I had this rule a month ago, I could have finished my hurricane windows. So I'm the one losing out here, guys. I have to say, Greg's builder, I don't even know the guy, but he had the cleanest job site in the history of the town, I think. So I see both sides of this. I certainly, you all know that basically I ran because Bellito was called the Wild West of Florida. It was a pretty much biggest mess you ever saw. The two incidents that that come to mind is I actually had a boat parade party going on, and they decided to lay the pool deck that day. And with the northerly wind, I had to move my party to the other side of the house because it covered the back deck with tile dust. Then the other incident that really got our neighbors together on this super code was, if you want to call it, was a roof truss truck was delivering pretty large homes roof trusses on a Saturday afternoon, and 6 kids, not mine, I don't know who they were crossing A1A, and it was not a safe situation. There's no crosswalk on the streets between your complex, Doug, and Regency Highland. There's no crosswalk for 1 mile. So everyone's crossing without assistance of our wonderful new crosswalks. So those are the 2 incidents that I recall that pretty much enraged people. But at the time we updated the codes, there was an extreme need to get control of the town. I do want to ask Jeff, he's on board, 2 questions if I could before I continue.
Sure.
Jeff, are you on there? Hi. Don't we allow cleanup until 6 p.m. currently? I don't have the handbook on me, but aren't contractors allowed to be on site until 6, or is it 5?
They have to finish work by 5. They have to be off the job site by 5:30.
5:30, thank you. So we have that cleanup approximation. I was thinking it was 6. And then also, Jeff, just to weigh in on Greg's comments and Kevin's, I know Kevin, do we have a large degree of contractors saying bye-bye and not taking jobs here? I'm just looking for your input in general. Yes, no, maybe.
A large percentage, no. Have I heard it many times? Yes, where contractors, they don't want to do work because of the work hour restrictions. They just simply don't want to come to Highland Beach because it's not worth it. And those that do come here have to charge more money because of the restriction of the hours and the days, especially the Saturday.
Okay, and then also in that light, is there any kind of a pushback in the fact we did not have a code officer for 10 plus years and you were not on board and there was sort of a very lax building enforcement? Are we going from that extreme to this extreme? Are you hearing that people would like to return and build in a no rules Wild West town?
No, I don't think anyone ever wants a Wild West, but you know, it makes it difficult for us to consistently enforce things that are significantly more restrictive than other towns that people aren't used to. You know, they often will sign for the construction site handbook, but really never read it. And then they don't find out until, you know, they're caught. Jason has actually worked at the very least the last 6 Saturdays. And one particular Saturday, he caught 7 people working in one day in 7 different locations. So we do have we're the most restrictive of any municipality that I've ever been involved with, to be quite honest. But again, it's your decision. My job is to enforce what you put in place, but it's not the easiest when it's as restrictive.
Okay, and I certainly have great respect for you and your background and your opinions. Could you weigh in and let me know what you think might be a fair Saturday or hourly rate for these contractors? Subs, everyone.
Well, I think during the week, the 8 to 6 gives them plenty of time. You know, that added half hour gives them a little bit more time, you know, to do a little bit more work. I think the quiet work on Saturday, whether it's from 9 to 2 or 9 to 4, or give them at least 6 hours, would be beneficial to moving things forward. But again, we're holding up a lot of these projects because of the work hour restrictions. And quiet work on a Saturday would certainly really expedite a lot of the projects that are going on and probably bring more contractors who go, oh, okay, I can come in on a Saturday. Because the contractor in me is saying, hey, if you're going to tell me I can't work Saturdays and I'm limited, I have to charge more money. That's the bottom line. I have to charge more money in order for me to, pay my bills and live the lifestyle that I want as a contractor.
Got it. And one more question. With we're talking about Bellito, single-family homes, but truly we have, I'm sure, condos wanting to do work, townhouses, everyone. I'd like to know your overall view, because this isn't just a Bellito problem, though it is more prolific there because there's a lot of tear downs, a lot of 40, 50-year-old homes coming down, new gorgeous things going up. What would be your overall view of the town in terms of what condos would like, townhouses would like on a Saturday or an hourly work?
Well, that's where they have the benefit of an HOA and restricted access, where they can have their own rules and regulations on what they choose to do. And my suspicion is that some of them will probably allow some quiet work, and others will probably continue to want to follow along with the town's wishes. One of the other issues that I haven't really heard about yet, and if you're asking, again, the opinion, is that we have days like Columbus Day where no one can work. There are certain holidays that are recognized at the federal level. The banks are closed, but they may not be as important to families or a lot of other businesses that don't have those days off, where they can't even work on those days, because if the building department's closed and the town hall is closed, they can't, so those are some other days that we may, want to, if you haven't already looked at them, I think that would also help. But overall, I'm here to help, enforce whatever the commission puts in place. But overall, we are, like the vice mayor stated, the pendulum kind of swung too far in the other direction, and it needs to be brought more towards center, maybe a little heavier to one direction than the other. But it is a little too restrictive.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much. I'll just give you a couple more comments, if I could. Thank you, Jeff, very much. I'd be interested in what the condos say. I had called a few friends in condos over the week. A lot of them don't allow any Saturday work. Is that because of our regulations in place, or were those in place anyway, or is it due to COVID? Do we have any input on that?
Well, I
Evelyn, do you
don't
know,
believe
in your
it's
condo?
because of COVID. It may well be because of what the town regulations are, and some of them just didn't want it, period. But that shouldn't apply to everyone in the town, because if you move to a condo, first of all, if you move to a condo, you're not building a new building. So you're not pouring concrete, and you're not doing a lot of the things that you have with a newer building.
No, understood. Thank you.
But also remember, you've got people in this town where both parents, both adults work,
I know.
and they may not want to have a contractor in their house when they're not there. So that means they have to take off work in
Yes.
order to be able to have anything done if they can't do it on a Saturday.
Yes,
And
I
that's
understand.
usually
That's-
smaller projects. That's not usually a big project.
That's
Right,
most
I
of the-
understand.
that's
I've
many
had
of the
that
calls
comment
that I've
actually.
gotten.
Yeah, I've
But
actually
also
had comment
remember,
from several.
Peggy,
Yes, ma'am.
you were talking about a truck going down A1A and kids not being able to cross.
Yes, a roof
That
truck.
truck can go down, going just through. It doesn't have to be stopping in Highland Beach. It could be going to Delray. It could be going to Gulfstream.
Oh, no, it
things-
turned on a side street and almost clipped the group. That was my point. But yeah, it was
Yeah,
just an
but
example.
I mean, it could.
Sure.
But you can't make an ordinance based on one or two incidents.
No, I understand, but it wasn't one or two incidents. It was 923 complaints filed with the town. You don't even want to see the stack of complaints. I have. a copy.
923 individual separate
Yes,
people complaints, or one person making more than one complaint?
Oh, multiple people, but 923 total filed, not just all me or Mady or Juliet or the other people who've had construction next door, but total complaints. But I do feel for the contractors, I feel for the people who want to do painting. I'm not against tweaking this. I think we have to look out for everyone in town. If someone needs to do some work on a weekend, I have friends who both people work, as you said, Doug and Evelyn, and they don't want to leave their 10-year-old home with a contractor. So on a Friday, I understand that. So I would like to look at sort of reorganizing, sorry, I need more coffee. On reorganizing this. I'm also interested in really more townspeople weighing in if that's a possibility, or we think we have enough viewpoints.
You got plenty.
We
We
do.
have plenty of
Okay, we
viewpoints.
have plenty of viewpoints. So I'd be interested in working out something that benefits everyone in town and not just my windows. So I'm open to suggestion for the benefit of everyone. I really think
We
that we
also
have to work it
remember-
out. That's why we're
Well,
up here.
When-
My brains are better.
Yeah, I haven't
as one
spoken
unit
yet.
here.
Let me give you my 2
So
cents.
those are my
Okay.
opinions. I've one more thing. I've heard the same as Greg has from my constituents there. There's a balance of no work at all and do any work you want and then something in between. So if we could just rationally come up with a plan that suits everyone to the best of our ability as we try to do.
Okay. I think I can speak for the condos or basically multifamily, if you will. Basically, John, I think summed it up and Evelyn. Basically, the HOAs and condos have the ability to make their own rules. So they're really not, they don't have a dog in this fight. It's kind of like that simple. And they have the ability to adjust their rules as the need arises. So it really comes down to the side streets and to A1A. What I'm hearing from both of you is there is a significant difference of opinion from your development. And I would suspect that if we checked with the other side streets, it would be similar. Okay, so I don't know that we even have to go that way. So I would propose that we go to 8 to 6 as opposed to the 8 to 5, as Jeff has suggested. He certainly has his thumb on the business, has the knowledge. I think that the
During the week.
Saturday,
During the week up there, right?
I'm
8 to
sorry?
6? During the week.
during the week, yeah. I think Saturdays, I'm looking at Palm Beach, they're 9 to 5. I have no problem with 9 to 4. As Jeff has suggested, I think that we need to really define though what interior quiet work is, not just have that terminology. I don't think we should leave that up to people to just decide for themselves. And I would ask Greg to work with Jeff on that and come back to us as a group so that we can shake our head saying, yeah, that makes sense. Would you be comfortable doing that? Okay. Does that make sense to everybody here?
Yeah, I think that when these rules were changed, I think that they have had an unintended consequence,
No
which
question.
is, and I'm not, don't get me wrong, I am not worried about contractors. I'm worried about the people who buy in this town or build in this town where it is costing them 25% more and taking them 25% longer.
Excuse me.
And that's
excuse
not
me, I have
fair.
to interrupt. It's not 25%, it's a third more.
A third more?
We went from 60 hours to 45.
Right.
You want to add 15 back on 45. It's 33% more.
Wow.
The example
Mhm,
that Greg
right.
gave us, and he's
You're
right.
absolutely right.
The 18 becomes
24.
24. Okay, it's a third
So
more.
it's even worse
No.
than I thought.
It's worse than you thought. Now, the other thing that's not good is if you live on a side street where that work is being done, you're suffering for 6 more months of work.
That's true.
That's really unintended consequences. You're suffering for that much longer. That wasn't what you wanted. So now if we can do what we're suggesting, allowing them to do quiet work inside where it doesn't bother people, we can get the people in and out faster.
And the trucks off your street.
Well,
Mayor?
Well,
I just
Peggy
was-
had her hand up. We'll come
Just
back
real
to you in a
quick, I'm
second.
just going to add, when the Wild West was raining, there were homes that went almost 3 years under construction.
Unacceptable. I'm with you.
2 years and 8 months, we logged them up when we were reviewing all this. And that's due to not having a terrific building department and oversight and just spec home
Yeah,
builders,
that's
whatever,
no
coming
good.
and going. To go almost 3 years on a single family home was out of control. So
Yeah,
it's not just
Look at- don't
the
get-
hours reduced.
yeah,
There were
don't
people
get me
who were,
wrong.
yeah. So
I'm
that
not
didn't take
faulting
place.
the effort.
No,
It just, like my associate said, the pendulum swung too far, too fast. We need to get it back. And things like this happen all the time. Pendulums always swing too far. Okay, John.
So I think defining what's quiet is obviously going to be important here. And we've already heard, and I think your point is very well taken, Greg, that, tractors, heavy equipment, cranes, dump trucks and a lot of that isn't necessarily going to be needed on Saturday. And they, as you heard, they can schedule their work such that much of it will be finishing up, cleaning up, so forth on Saturdays. It also, the unintended consequence is it's hurting our own citizens.
Of course it is.
I mean, and delays, and it's hurting the town, as I said, because of taxes.
Everybody loses.
Everybody seems to be losing on this deal. Now, if there was a safety issue with the trucks, then I'd be concerned.
Different story.
But I think that police, I've seen the police stopping all the time. I think they're very good at checking on these builders when they're not supposed to be working. But code enforcement, to your point, Peggy, in the past maybe was absent. And now it won't be. And so we need to just reinforce the need for code enforcement on Saturdays to make sure that.
Yeah. Speaking of police, Chief, you have anything to add to this?
Oh. No, but you're there. I know he's there.
Okay, we're cool then, right? All right.
One other thing to add to this whole thing on days. I would be open to having them work on Columbus Day, President's Day, and MLK Day.
Thank you. I have a list. Parents' Day.
Huh?
Parents' Day.
What is Parents' Day?
They're not allowed to work on Parents' Day? Jeff?
Oh, President's Day, right?
I'm sorry, President's Day. Why am I saying Parents' Day?
Yeah, I was gonna
President's Day. President's Day is right now a no-work day.
Correct.
Is there any reason that we cannot make that a work day?
My only comment would be that is the height of, if people travel again, that is the height of Northerners bringing their grandkids down, their kids.
That's,
That's a break up from the schools up
that
north.
lasts for 3 weeks.
Okay,
Schools
well,
are
you know
off.
more.
I mean,
Haven't been up there for a
yeah,
while.
it's,
Okay, I'm just pointing out,
Yep.
it's possible.
I would propose that we allow that. Columbus Day.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be.
Nobody
a
likes
work day.
Columbus these days
No,
anyway.
Yeah.
that's right. He's out of
Columbus is
favor.
on the out.
Jeff, isn't there a federal holiday schedule that most other towns use?
It
It's
it
not.
may be, but
Yeah, but if you look at a lot of these towns, they all have far fewer holidays when you can't work than we do.
right.
So there are quite a few certainly that we can get rid of.
Right,
So-
that's what I was asking, is there a standard list?
But, and I.
I'm
agree
going
with
through the
you when
list.
you would- When you were talking about the contractors scheduling the subs, that you're right. If one stub goes over to the next week on a Monday, then the next 4 days are empty.
You got
And
it.
no one is on that job site
Yeah.
because the subs plan it from
Week to week.
week to week.
Right. Veterans Day.
What day?
You're not going to let me go through my list?
I was wondering if we just say federal holidays and then
Yeah,
in case
exactly.
somebody does have a sensitive holiday that we have, we don't hit it and say, oh, go ahead and work. And we've passed off something that may a commissioner or somebody in the community
But
finds
aren't
out.
all of these federal holidays?
Yeah.
Doesn't
Well, these
mean that
are
every-
federal
They're all
holidays.
federal
Columbus
holidays,
Day
but
is a
doesn't
federal
mean
holiday.
that everything is closed
I'm
down.
objecting to them, that's all. Is there a reason we can't allow them to work on Veterans Day?
No.
Okay, the day after Thanksgiving.
Seems like a good day to work. It's a Friday.
Sure.
Good work day, Dave. Friday, good day.
Yep.
Christmas Eve day. Memorial Day.
Memorial Day is a big day.
I think that's a big day. And Memorial Day is a big day.
Big day.
We don't-
Actually, Christmas Eve is.
Christmas Eve is a big day. I don't even think they'll come and work on those days.
No,
Frankly.
those are family days.
Yeah, they really are.
Well, but maybe for Christmas Eve, we have a limited hours that we
No.
cut it down a
Maybe we-
little
Not a
It's
bit.
either
good
all or
idea.
nothing.
They're not going to come out on Christmas Eve.
I think they will.
You want to let them decide?
Them who?
The
Want to
contract.
close at 3?
Well, we just did hours and Saturday. I'm just saying, maybe take it easy on a few of these. I don't know. I think Christmas Eve and Memorial Day, you leave
Yeah.
alone.
Okay. All right, so we've added back 4. Presidents, Columbus, veterans, day after Thanksgiving. We're putting them back in as work days.
What about MLK Day?
Oh, it's okay with me. MLK Day?
That is not a day that we were scheduled off anyway, nor was the day after Thanksgiving on the list that we
Okay.
provide to the contractors. So the day after Thanksgiving has always been okay to work. It's not on here, and neither, but MLK is on the list.
As an okay to work day.
No, I said
No.
not okay.
Not okay.
Okay, so we're putting it in as okay.
Yes.
You've got this, you got it on your list?
Yep.
Okay, we'll leave it to you and take care of it. Okay.
Hey, Jeff, I have a question for you. Is there somewhat of an easy way to describe the limitations on the Saturday? And I'll tell you how I was kind of thinking about it. No large scale deliveries like tractors, trailers, no concrete pouring, no heavy machinery, meaning dump trucks, backhoes, tractors, forklifts, no drywall hanging, where you're doing the screws.
Nail gun, yeah.
That's kind of what I thought of. Is there any other ones where you're thinking like, well, that's an obvious one you wouldn't want to do on a Saturday?
Power
Well,
saw.
yeah, jackhammering or hammer drilling into concrete, anything other than, it's okay for them to lay out some steel and just hand wide tire things, but that's a lot of that. Those are some really important things that they can do. But I would say you're definitely on the right track for sure. But I would add in any kind of hammer drilling or jackhammering, and leave a little wiggle room for interpretation, as necessary.
Got it.
We got 2 good guys on this. I'm confident.
Also, if I could add in, changing a dumpster and other facilities
Oh.
is noisy and messy.
No good.
and a
Not
big
on
old-
Saturdays.
Jeff, couldn't
Yeah.
hear you. What were you saying?
Sorry.
I agree with Peggy that changing out dumpsters on a Saturday would be too loud and
No, right.
obtrusive.
You don't want that big vehicle coming in and everything else. Yeah. Okay, can we move on?
So we'll bring something back. Is that the
Bring
plan?
something back at the next meeting?
Roger that.
Can we, question?
Yeah.
2 points. In Delray Beach, when there is a big project, particularly launched by the city, such as the sewers and whatnot, and also for the some of the big new builds, Delray Beach and/or the building department, I'm not sure, issues a letter to surrounding neighbors, like 2 on each side, and say, this is what's going on, here's your contact, here's Jeff Remus's number, here's town hall if it's after hours. And I don't know why we can't do something like that if it's not really a cost, it's just a time factor. It lends itself to being a good neighbor and keeps everyone,
Nice idea.
informed. And I have a copy of it that I couldn't process yesterday for the bit. I'll get to Marshall to get to you all.
Great idea.
So that would be that. And secondly, once we come back with this, with Greg's masterpiece, if we could ask Marshall.
Jeff's masterpiece.
Oh, Jeff's masterpiece. He's a great guy. If we could perhaps get that to the residents via Marshall's newsletter, his manager's minute or something, and let them weigh in so they still feel they have a voice, not just
We're
Bellevue,
just going to
but the whole
publish your
town.
phone number.
Go ahead. Give him both numbers. The dog will answer.
Now, Marshall,
But it might
procedurally,
help everyone here.
this would be basically a new ordinance, or this would be a procedural change? How would one?
This would end up in an ordinance change, as you see, as it's stated in here, section 12.6 would have to be 2 reads and we'd amend it. So I would guess that we would come back on the 17th. Jeff and Vice Mayor Bobby will discuss what they are going to define as legal work and the holidays. We would come back and then say, if everybody agrees to these things, and then you would say what those hours are. Then we would go and draft a first read, come back, you would first read it, then we'd have to do a notice, public notice, and do a second read. So we're talking probably not till January.
Then you will sponsor
Yes.
the ordinance. Excellent. Okay. You don't want to do it? No, this is working great.
Happy to
Okay,
take the
terrific.
assignment.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
Mayor, just
Yes, sir.
another comment about Greg's input, which I have to admit, in all of this, the one thing that really did surprise me is that this whole thing is being requested by the owners, not the contractors.
It has nothing to do with contractors.
It's unbelievable.
No.
So, I mean, we're trying to represent our own citizens in
That's
a
why
positive way.
that's why we're getting paid the big bucks. You got it.
Yeah, well, some might disagree, but.
Okay, can we move on? We're done with the subject. Peggy, this is Florida League of Cities full report and a committee update.
Yes, that was very interesting. Thank you for that. We had a Zoom call, and I remember Barry Donaldson had served on one of these committees, and people from the league kept saying, oh, why don't you go on? So I said, okay. So it's very interesting what occurred, and I'll get copies once again to Marshall to copy you all. These are the counties in Florida. And when you look at a map, it's a lot of counties, and it's such a varied amount of counties. I mean, when people come to these meetings, they're in cowboy boots and hats, and, you know.
It's a real amalgamation.
It is very
Different,
interesting.
yeah.
You get the Miami Beach tans and white suits, like out of Miami Vice. You get all kinds of people. It's very interesting. But the thing with these committees is they're looking for people throughout the state of all types of communities to provide input for what the league takes to the legislature, what the league wants as a whole for all the counties, for all the municipalities, not what Highland Beach wants or Palm Beach County. And so the Zoom call really underscored that. They look to fashion policies before they open the legislature in March. They want to know, what do we want? We want, like 2 years ago, control of vacation homes, control of the roads, more roads in the west side of the state. And this particular committee covers that. As one pointed out, the transportation is not only road and rail, but a lot of water transportation, the ports. We have 3 new ports being dug out, as I mentioned, and it's space travel. It sort of hit me like, what? But you're talking the Space Coast. The Space Coast really picking up in tourism and business, and SpaceX and the Falcon rocket and everything moving there. So this is a committee who fashions what all the communities want to take forth to the legislature. And so when there's one more meeting, the end of this month, and I'll bring back a report. And then at that time, they fashion on this particular board of tourism, rather transportation, they fashion what policies they want to take. Also in this committee, it's interesting, is the Sadowski Fund, which is low-income housing. For some reason, it ended up in this committee. Now, we don't have that in Highland Beach, but we do in all the neighboring towns. You're talking about new persons coming to the state, workers. And so that is one fund that is often rated when there's a problem such as COVID. And so that they try to manage providing enough funds for the low-income housing versus having to utilize the funds elsewhere. So it's a very interesting committee. They're encouraging, if anyone wants to, there's a few spots open on other committees. Please see Marshall and he can let you know if you are looking for more work and fun times. And I'm guessing I'll keep you in the loop. will hopefully serve us to know what's happening in Tallahassee.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Comments? Okay, moving on to, approving commission meeting minutes. They begin on, well, probably page 80, 79. I do have a point on page 81, if anybody else has anything prior to that. On page 81, on the second paragraph, begins with discussion followed about recycling and conversation, beach cleanup and maintenance. Next word, I think it should be preserving. I think we missed the P. That's all I had. Anybody have anything else on any of the 4 sets of minutes? Yes? Where are you?
Okay, page 85, towards the bottom of the page where it says, motion, Commissioner Shoemaker moved. It says it was passed unanimously 6-0, but we only have 5 commissioners.
Okay.
Good catch.
Anything else?
I think that was the only thing.
Same thing down below, right? 6-0 and motion 3/4 of the way down the page.
Where are you? Okay, just below that. Yeah, that's the one I thought you was talking about.
There's also one up here at the top.
Oh,
Oh,
I
up on
didn't see
top.
the one up there.
Ah, okay, we got them twice. Okay,
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the one at the top.
all right. You have it in both places, Linelda?
Yes, I do. We'll make the changes as stated.
Okay. Anything else, or are we clear? Okay, can we have one motion for all 4, please?
Sure. I move that we accept the minutes of the previous meetings as presented.
Might have to mention all 4 of them.
As
That's
amended
August
dates.
4th, 6th, 13th, and 18th.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So be it. One thing, just general comment. I know, Peg, you're working on these as well. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir. And
We
no
definitely
problem. I
definitely
didn't see
appreciate
these.
it.
They were very well done, really, for the most part.
Not a
I
big thing.
did not
We-
take a look at this group.
We are, it's just appears to me as though we're have a tendency to be falling back maybe to more broader, extended
Yeah.
minutes here. If we can start to collapse them again, maybe that would be helpful, please. I know there are parts where we do want to, show a little bit, but they're starting to get voluminous again.
So
I don't write them, I proof them in my
Okay.
spare time.
Well, when
We
you
will-
do, if you can cut them back, and
We will cut
the
'em
author,
back.
if you can cut them back,
we will
please.
cut them back, and we do put in based on the subject matter. For example, if you're talking about the beach, when there's items that come up repetitively, we kind of tend to put a little more in, but we'll scale it back.
Like things like, discussion ensued, period. Somebody wants the details, they can go to the video.
Okay, okay, thank you.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome. Okay, Peggy?
Yes, sir.
We added G for you.
Oh, yes, for my last name. Well, Linelda did a terrific job putting together the submission due dates, but they are longer in time than they have been in the past in terms of the amount of time between when an agenda item is due and what the meeting is for. For example, today was the deadline for the next meeting. And I know this was an anomaly because we moved our meeting to Thursday due to the election. But some of these are 3 and 4 weeks apart, and I'm just wondering if that's not too far apart for if things come up in the interim
Good point.
in a 2, 3, or 4. I mean, 4 and 3 weeks is a long time.
It is.
Some of us probably get calls 2 days before a meeting, and I have no problem with any of us ever adding something, but these seem too far apart for clarity's sake. And I just think 4 or 5 days may be reasonable, but whatever everyone thinks, this is just 3-4 weeks is too much, in my opinion.
That's a good point. I think we have a comment over here.
Yes, I apologize. When I was creating the schedule, I looked at the weekends and the holidays. So I excluded weekends and holidays. So that's why it might look a little more, so I counted weekdays, business days. I factored business days and excluded weekends and holidays because sometimes people go on vacation and it may impact when we get things in. So that was, I take full responsibility for that. So that's what I
Okay.
factored
You took a
in.
shot.
How many business days
Okay.
were you setting it for?
So I just excluded the weekend. So I think some of these might be 12 days, some may be 14 days. So, but it was based on like, for example, the Christmas holiday. You have that Christmas and then you have New Year's. They're kind of jammed up to each other. And so I kind of factored certain things in when preparing this.
I know, but that's 1 month in between when items are due. That's a long time in my opinion.
Well, Peggy, if you, excuse me for interrupting, if you see a few in there that might be improved, why don't you get together with Linelda
Okay.
and see if there's some adjustments that might be made?
Sure, that'll be my job this
Okay.
week. Okay,
Great, thank you.
Great.
Thank you for noticing.
yes, no worries. Thank you so much.
Okay. Shall we move on to commission comments? John?
No comments.
Evelyn?
No comments.
Peggy?
I have a few. Sorry, it was a busy week.
Okay.
Your research first, though.
No research. I'm backing down on research for my 2021. I attended an Impact 100 event, which 3 of my friends from many, many years ago work on. This is a group of women, ladies with some spare time, and I provided Marshall the details. And one of the ladies I've known 20 years, and she, as her hobby, looks into grants statewide, often throughout the county. Anyway, she found a couple of, well, one grant in this case that she thought might fit our town, just saying, here you go, just in conversation. Provided it to Marshall. And so we had a little discussion, and I have enough of these cards. I think I passed them out to everyone, but it's this sort of thing when you're just moving around the community, an opportunity kind of talks to
Right.
you. And so Marshall and I discussed it, and for our next meeting, he had some great ideas of ways we could approach that and fold it into our appropriations request for next year, which is my next point. Our state rep, Mike Caruso, was reelected by a landslide in his
Should be a
terms.
landslide. Good guy.
Apparently, he said every registered voter in Highland Beach voted for him. He feels, and so we will, Marshall and I, if that's all right with everyone, will work up some ideas to fold in some possible grants with the appropriations request, possibly for the swales, and John will have some input by then on his right of way. We can come together and come up with a plan to benefit the town. As much free money as we can get, I think we're going to all need. In light of possibly COVID ongoing, we may have limited funds, but let's go for less, as Marshall said, and expect more.
Right.
So that's pretty much it. Oh, and then I had this contact, as I mentioned last meeting, for seaweed removal in times of excess seaweed. Marshall has that information. He said he would get with the seaweed removal companies if need be. But that's the kind of thing I wanted to share, and he can pass it on to you all, so that we're all, again, whatever we can do for the town at our least cost is great. That's it for me. Thank you for everyone's input.
Nothing.
Love it. I got one quick thing. Milani Park, the idea of getting the 100 people to the park. The date is November 18th at 10 a.m. Okay? 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Just make sure people bring their masks and a beach towel or beach blanket. We're counting on 90 people from your development.
No problem.
No,
Do we
we've
have a
got,
rain date?
We've got 45 Ocean. Jack Halpin
Oh,
will take care of
Jack.
that. Got a bunch of different buildings involved. If there are people that require to drive down, if they have walking issues, parking will be taken care of so they can bring their cars down if necessary.
Mayor, do we have a rain date if we have
No,
weather?
it's going to be rain or shine unless it's a
Okay.
downpour. Then obviously we'll have to reschedule.
And the
But this
parking
way
will
we
be-
can catch the high tide.
and the parking will be where?
Right there, right there. Be able to park on the
At the-
side.
On a.
Chief will take care of us.
Ah, do we tip?
Yeah, do we tip? Okay. You still with us there? Glenn?
Yep, I was just on mute.
Okay, well, now's your time to shine.
Oh, well, I don't know if I should sing or dance. You guys covered a lot of ground today, from, water rates to construction hours, and there's really no legal report. I think you're all aware of what's going on, with COVID. Just continue to be safe, and they're haven't heard this yet, but there may be another governor's order coming out for December if we continue at this rate. So, but for now, we're back to in-person meetings.
Okay. Gotcha. Thanks. Marshall, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot to read something into public comment we got from Carol Wittenberg. She wanted to thank Mayor Rhoda Zellniker for all her work and bringing safety to the community to the forefront, and the crosswalk project, and that Highland Beach can remember Rhoda Zellniker for her, and will ultimately remind her legacy is the crosswalks, how much passion and commitment. That was from Carol Wittenberg. So Carol, thank you for sending it. And I apologize not reading it at the beginning of the meeting. I got it, but I got stuck in the wrong spot. Folks throughout town, you'll see street signs. We got new street signs. So maybe when you go home, you might see some new street signs, which will have our new logo, the new font. It'll be the new fluted black poles. So our street signs are also getting the facelift that they needed. That was part of our capital project. As soon as it stops windy and rain, we'll finish the logo on the water tower. That's still forthcoming. We got the new chiller in the back. We'll have the second chiller we're going to get this year. So that's been getting done. As I was saying, as part of the crosswalk project, we still have to do the landings. It's kind of the ADA piece. But what's really neat, thanks to Pat Roman for finding this, you see those yellow, what they call truncated domes, which make you stop. It's for the visually impaired, but you can customize them. So you'll see our new logo on those truncated domes when you go to cross the crosswalks. You look down and see the big Highland Beach logo. So everything's, little step up. It's kind of nice and be a nice touch to our crosswalks. Fire, just to give you an update. I know that came at public comment. We're working on that. I just spoke with the consultant. He emailed me while we were meeting. We've asked for some additional financial information from Delray to test a few assumptions that they found. So we're going through that process. So they said they would get us to us at the end of the week. So next week, I remember saying that I would get you that draft profile. They gave us that draft profile. That's part of the phase one of the project. They had some questions on financing that Matt and Robert and I are working through. So Delray's made a commitment to get us some clarity on some actuals on some few years reporting. So far the product looks good as far as presenting information, response, call numbers, costs, how they operate. I think they did a good job putting our understanding in a more simplified form for everybody to understand. So that's forthcoming. It's not, the project didn't die, it just took a little while getting some info, but we're back on track and making that headway. To go on what Glenn was saying, we hear the stuff about COVID. The numbers are coming back. Community spread is prevalent. It's here. It's coming back. Call it the second wave, third wave. I, like many of you, I'm tired of this, but please just be careful and cautious when you're out and about. Trust me, no one's more fatigued by it than me. Because I love seeing you all here. I love this format. I'd like to take the plastic down. We got to wait, but it's good. I think we had a very productive meeting. I thank you for the guidance, especially on the water sewer stuff. You may not know how important your direction was today. That was amazing. Other than that, just our regular capital projects, getting everything in place, and we're picking up steam here. So that's all I got.
Again, did a great job with all this. Worked out great. I think everybody's pleased with it. Feel comfortable with it. Well done. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's, never thought I'd be doing this in, my career, trying to make phone booths for commissioners, but, or the
And-
penalty box, if, I'm at a ice skating rink, but, whatever.
And it may sound corny, but it's a pleasure to disagree with everybody and still come out with a good solution. We all work very well together. Good job. Okay, it's 5:04 and we will adjourn.